Margaret, please enable me as a presenter. Thank you.
We've got it. Just a moment. Tim?
It looks like you'll need to have controls first, won't you?
Correct. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead. Shut your back, thanks.
Good evening, everyone. Margaret, is everything ready to roll on your end?
I believe so.
Okay. At this time, we will call to order the December 15th, 2020 City Council meeting, the Brentwood City Council. And if you could all join with me at this time in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Margaret, I'll turn it to you.
Roll call. Councilmember Mendoza.
Here. Here.
Councilmember Meyer.
Here.
Vice Mayor Rodriguez.
Here.
Mayor Bryant.
Here.
The record should reflect that no council members indicated they were unable to hear the proceedings clearly. I'd like to remind council, the staff, and the public to please speak directly into your microphones during the meeting to ensure that everyone can hear what you have to say. At this time, we'll move into public comments. At this time, the public is permitted to address the City Council on items that are listed under informational reports, the consent calendar, requests for future agenda items, new requests, and items that are not on the agenda. I should note that item C1, to do with the council vacancy, there will be an opportunity to speak on that when that item is heard by council. And we received one public comment via email from Nicole Wagner regarding the Duali-Mori annexation. And I do see I have two hands raised for public comment. I have Carolina Villaseca, followed by Cinziana. Oh, one hand just went down. I have Cinziana Todor. I'll go ahead and unmute you now. Cinziana, go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you, Margaret. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak in front of the City Council tonight. I am here to express my opposition to Duali-Mori development. This annexation would only have negative effects on our community, and here are just a few of them. Current residents and field workers, along with their families, will be possibly dislocated by this annexation. I hope a number close to 400 people, let me repeat, 400 people, says the story of what a tragedy this annexation can cause. Rezone. This word became a bad word for Brentwood a long time ago, but it is too bad that our elected officials never listen. We are still holding hope that the new council will be more open and receptive to our cry for maintaining and sticking to the general plan. Residents are highly opposed to any rezone, including in the case, of course, of Duali-Mori project, because it usually means more residential development. Yet, Mr. Bryan, Mr. Rodriguez, people are watching you because based on your campaign contributions and voting records, you only talk to talk, but not walk the walk. At the end of the day, you always vote to serve special interest and your real estate development friends and do not represent the people who voted you in the office. Brentwood does not want any more residential development until we fix the very well-known problems that we consistently bump into. The way your seats were bought during 2018 and 2020 elections, that is how fast you both can be recalled by the voters. Just something to reflect on when you pretend the next time to serve your constituents. And that brings up another point. For tonight, for all residents listening and being nervous about speaking, don't be afraid. Our elected officials need to hear from you how important it is to have the right people on the City Council representing you and representing the community. We need more council people representing the residents and voters, so please reinforce that point and speak up. Otherwise, we will continue to see projects like Walnut Villas, possibly in Nez State, as well as Duali-Mori, along with gas stations and car washes being fast-tracked and shoved down our throats without any accountability. I need 10 more seconds. If we get another council person who is an ally of Mr. Bryan Rodriguez and indebted to real estate investment and real estate development without voters' approval, our city will become just another Central Valley dusty town without the amenities of a Bay Area town that could elevate our standard of life. Thank you so much.
The next speaker is Dave Sparling. Mr. Sparling, I'll go ahead and unmute you now. And Ms. Todor, if you could go ahead and unraise your hand. Mr. Sparling, go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. First of all, I want to say congratulations to all of you. I think all of you are in new roles for the next 2 and 4 years, but congratulations again. Certainly look forward to seeing what you can do for Brentwood. What I wanted to talk about this evening is basically the county's COVID-19 vaccine distribution plan. I'm part of the industry that has developed the vaccine, and so I'm certainly proud to be part of it. And I'm a little bit concerned, and I'd reached out to Tim Ogden a couple weeks ago asking for some follow-up information for vaccine storage. The equipment that's needed to store the vaccines at the different temperatures that are going to be needed is in short supply. And this is, a fact since I work for a company that makes the equipment. And so I'm a little bit concerned about the readiness of Contra Costa County. And what I would like to see added moving forward is an agenda item with a COVID-19 update at least every month from the city, if not every 2 weeks, because certainly this is, I know people are concerned about this evening, but this is the COVID-19 vaccine distribution plan is certainly the most important thing that's going to happen during your tenure on the city council. And again, like I said, I'm a little bit concerned about the capability to store and move the vaccine within Contra Costa. I spent about an hour reading the response plan this afternoon, and certainly it is not very clear on how a citizen is going to be able to where to go to get a vaccine and at what time. Certainly there's lots of things that still are being worked on. One of the particular areas that I'm concerned about is since agriculture is so important to the Brentwood economy, is the farm workers and agricultural workers in Brentwood. While they are listed as an essential worker, it is not clear how Contra Costa will allocate the vaccines to the farm worker communities, and I think that it is critical for someone, if not all of you, to advocate on their behalf. Teachers and others who are on the essential workers list have unions to help them. I do not see the same level of support for the farm workers. I know Governor Newsom did make some comments earlier today about that seemed to elevate that. But again, within the county of Contra Costa, Brentwood certainly has a lot of farm workers versus the rest of the cities. And I'm a little bit concerned about how they're going to get represented and also how they're going to find out about how to get vaccinated. That's why I would like to see it as part of an agenda item, and certainly someone on the council take this up as an item to follow up on with the county and bring back the response specifically for the farm workers. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Cassandra Youngblood. I'll go ahead and unmute you now. Go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yes, my name is Cassandra Youngblood. I'm a long-time Brentwood resident, almost 20 years. I'm just calling to register my request and concern about how the vacancy is filled on the City Council and request that the next highest vote getter fill that seat rather than go through a special election and certainly not through an application process. Given we just completed a vote process, that seems to be the most logical approach to filling that seat, as well as the most democratic. Thank you.
I have no additional, I do have a few more speakers with their hands up. Mr. Meyer, followed by Danny Dorman. John Meyer, I'll go ahead and unmute you now. Go ahead. John Meyer, you're unmuted. I will skip Mr. Meyer and come back to him. Mr. Dorman, you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, and good evening, everyone. Congratulations, everyone. As many of you have already heard, the suggestion on how to fill the vacant seat. Of course, I'm in the favor of the next highest vote. I actually wrote a letter to our new mayor, and doggone it if I couldn't find it. I thought I crafted it lovely. I wanted to read it, but I can't find it. But in essence, I know everyone wants to do the right thing. In my interviews with all of you and finding out how the sausage is made, it's not going to be easy for any of you. And having oh boy, I really wish I had that letter in front of me. But here's what I said in essence, that I know that there were some spoilers out there for mayor. And you could tell because they're no longer around. You used to hear all kinds of things from the contenders, as I use air quotes. So the challenge is, who were they trying to spoil? Were they trying to spoil Joel, or were they trying to spoil Karen? I don't know. I just know that that was their sole purpose. So by having the next highest vote getter in this vacant chair, well, it spoils the spoilers to me. And that's a good thing. It also gives seasoned folks to help along our new two, I wish I could find the right word, but other than victim, because it's going to be challenging. So I hope, and as I remember saying this at the end, Joel, I know you'll do the right thing because your heart is with the city at the end of the day, and I feel the four I'm looking at right now, all four of you, you do have the best intentions with respect to Brentwood. So that's it. Thank you very much. Congratulations or condolences, depending on what happens 6 months from now.
Here is Vanessa Cleric, followed by Sue Harper. Vanessa, go ahead. Vanessa? I'll come back to Vanessa later. The next speaker is Sue Harper, followed by Sandra Myers. Sue, go ahead.
Hi. As she said, I'm Sue Harper, a resident of Brentwood. And I'm talking on the vacancy. I wasn't sure if we were supposed to make comments on that later. I thought that's what they said, but since everybody else is saying it now, I figured I will too. I really feel, my opinion on the appropriate method for filling the vacancy would be to go to the second highest vote getter position. This will be the most fair and representative of residents of Brentwood. They voted, and the votes were so close that it could almost be co-mayorship, if that's such a word. But because one person did get more votes, I think it makes sense to make the other person the vice mayor. To hold another election is totally unnecessary and cost prohibitive. We have a lot more things we could spend the money on in Brentwood. And to appoint another person other than the second highest vote getter would not be in keeping with the election. Because if someone other than Karen would be considered for that, why didn't that person run and give the residents a chance to vote them in? If someone who did run wasn't selected, then that is someone the voters did not choose. So the answer is simple. Let's keep this open and honest and simple and go with the second highest vote getter. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm finished.
The next speaker I have is Sandra Myers. Sandra, go ahead.
Sandra, go ahead. The at-large council seat currently vacant by. Pardon me?
Can I ask you to start?
Can I ask you to start over? Oh, sure. Okay. I would just like to express my opinion that the at-large council seat currently vacant be filled by the second vote place getter in our recent election, Karen Rary. Karen is familiar with current city issues and does not have to be brought up to speed. She has been the go-to council member with regard to park issues, mainly because She is familiar with park issues, having served on the very first Brentwood Parks and Rec Commission. I was a Brentwood Parks and Rec Commissioner for 15 years, and Karen was always willing to listen and understand. I hope you'll fill the current vacant seat with the next highest vote getter, which is Karen Rary. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. The next speaker I have is Laura and Phil, and I can't see a last name. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you now. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you. This is about the at-large city council seat. And by the way, congratulations to everybody. Would you prefer if I waited until C1 when this is brought up?
I think that's up to you.
How would you like?
If you wanted to.
Yes, that would be appropriate.
Okay, so I'll wait then.
The next speaker is Maribel Mendoza. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you now. Go ahead. Maribel Mendoza.
I was unmuted on both sides. Hi, this is Maribel Mendoza. I am calling on behalf of Hijas del Campo, based here in the region of Brentwood and Oakley, and I wanted to call to put as a record that I want to discuss the Dwelly Mori project and the annexation of that property, also bringing to light that district and the citizens of that district and the people of that district and what a project like this could mean to them. I really want to bring it to light to the council members, all of them, that this is a very important issue, and it's not about bringing in new property, bringing in new developers. It's about taking care of the people that live there now and the people that work there now, and what this can mean as far as safety, right? So when you're looking at the fire department, you're looking at the police department, you're looking at schools, you're looking at high density is what you guys want to vote to change for. So this is something that I definitely needs to be put on the docket and needs to be addressed. I can't stress enough how people in that community need your attention. And I think that the developers need to make sure that we're not just going on what they want us to do, and more so what the people need us to do. So, thank you. Have a good evening. Talk to you.
Hi, the next speaker will be Carolina Villaseca, and I just wanted to remind the speakers that there will be time to address the item C1, the council vacancy. When the council hears that item, there will be a public comment period. Carolina, I'll go ahead and unmute you now. Go ahead.
Hi, welcome, new city council. I wanted to ask if we could put on the agenda public comments, because I know people send them in, but they are acknowledged as public comments were sent in, but we never know how many, we don't know by who, and we don't know what they say. And I think it's really important as issues come up that we understand how important issues are to Brentwood City Council. So if 20 people wrote in about an issue or project or whatever, that should be acknowledged, and those comments should be read for public record so that people know in the future what occurred. So just saying we got public comments is not sufficient to explain how many or by whom or what about. So I would like to see that as an agenda item to be discussed. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker I have is Stephanie Aronson. Ms. Aronson, I'll go ahead and unmute you now. Go ahead.
Hi, I just wanted to speak on the Dwelly Mori project. I noticed that when I got on the city's website for the plans, none of the documents related to that project are posted online right now. And on the front page of the Dwelly Mori page, I guess, it refers to amending a municipal code that I looked up, and there is no code. It's 72 point something. Sorry, I just got home. I didn't have time to prepare. But anyway, so the city code that the webpage refers to in the dwelling moratorium plan does not exist. It's just blank. And there's no plan documents up. And so I just wanted the council to know that I'm really concerned about this because I am affected by this dwelling moratorium development. And I believe me and my neighbors have a right to see what's going on and see what the plans are and form an opinion. And we can't do that or express how we feel about it if we don't know, if we can't even see the information. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker I have is Antonio Xavier. Antonio, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I just wanted to add my voice to those who are opposing the dwelling moratorium project. I would like the council and the mayor to know that this is not a popular item among the residents. Thank you.
And I still had Sue Harper with her hand up. Sue, did you want to speak? You're unmuted. I still no Sue there. We'll go ahead and if anybody else who has their hands up, if you could unraise your hands. We have one additional speaker, Vanessa. I'll go ahead and unmute you now. Go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry about that. My computer wasn't working, but good evening. I also just wanted to express my input for the method for filling the open council seat, and I'm in agreement. I think everyone else has spoken. The next highest vote getter seems to be the most fair and democratic method since the voters already determined the ranking among the candidates, and Karen Rary was very close, and that is the person that really should be taking that seat. It is definitely a process that should be filled with candidates elected by the citizens of Brentwood. The application process does not seem to reflect that at all, so I think that would be the absolute last process to be used. And as a second point, I think it would be totally unfair to fill a seat with the person that did not go through the same extensive and expensive campaign process that all the other candidates had to go through to get the same seat, the same powers that the fairly elected council members had to go through. So I certainly hope that, again, you will do the right thing and fill that with someone that the voters have already decided they wanted to be part of this city government. Thank you.
And with that, we have no additional speakers with their hands raised at this time.
Okay, thank you. So at this time, we will go into informational reports. Are there any council members? We'll start with the alphabetical order. Councilperson Mendoza.
I have nothing to report.
Okay. Council Member Meyer.
I have nothing to report. Thank you.
Okay. Council Member Rodriguez.
I don't have anything to report.
Okay, I have a few things to report. I attended the Habitat Conservancy meeting for the county with Brentwood, also Transplan, as well as the lighting of the menorah for Hanukkah with the Chabad of the Delta. And with that, I have nothing else to report. Okay, we'll move into the consent calendar. And, need a motion for the consent calendar.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve consent calendar B1.
We have a first.
I second that.
And a second. Margaret, could we get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Mendoza?
Yay.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mayor Bryant?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimous.
Okay, and we will now move into business item C1, consideration of and direction of staff regarding options to fill vacancy on the City Council created by the election of former Vice Mayor Joel Bryant, the office of Mayor. I'll turn it over to the City Manager.
Good evening, Mayor and Council and members of the public. Appreciate your participation here tonight. As you are aware, Mayor Joel Bryant was elected mayor and has vacated his at-large City Council seat. We have 2 new council members now filling the districts 1 and 3 this year. I've seen there's some confusion about which districts came into play this year, but districts 2 and 4 will take effect in November of 2022. So the vacancy that exists is to fill the at-large seat, and that has a remaining term of 2 years through November 2022. And so the other districts are not impacted at this point, or eligible, I should say, to fill. Here's a district map that shows the 4 districts. Again, District 1 and 3 are in play, and 2 and 4 will come later. And the approximate locations are our current council members. So the state government code for the election law requires that the City Council, within 60 days from the commencement of the vacancy, so that was once you certified the election on December 8th, has 60 days to fill it by really 2 options. One is to have a City Council appointment, and the law does not dictate any process, so that's left to the jurisdiction to dictate. Or proceed with a special election, and that special election cannot be held for at least 114 days to give, I anticipate, time for the candidates to prepare their campaigns. And within that special election, there are really 2 options, either for an all-mail ballot election, like we just recently experienced, with I guess there was polls as well. And that next election date would be May 4th, 2021. There's a slight catch, though, because, again, you need to have that 114 days from once the election is called before you can have that election. So this election, if you want to proceed to May 4th, would need to be called by the City Council before January 10th. And I would recommend probably a few days before, because that's actually on a Sunday. Or the election, if it's an all-mail ballot, would default to the August 31st, 2021. These are dates dictated in the government code section, not that the City Council can change those dates. If the Council desires, however, not to have an exclusively all-mail ballot election and desires to have polls, this would be with the assistance of the county, and they have one date for that would involve polls, and that is November 2nd, 2021. So those are the options if you want to do a special election. If, for whatever reason, there isn't consensus from the Council to either do an appointment or a special election, and February 6th, which would be the 60th day from once the election was certified, then it would default automatically to a special election. And it is presumed that it would be that August 31st date, unless, again, the Council preferred to do the mail with polling stations open, and that would be November 2nd. And we can provide more information on that as needed if that becomes an option. Per the county, who provides the election costs to us, there were approximately 40,000 registered voters in Brentwood, and it's approximately $3.50 to $5 per registered voter. Those costs would fluctuate depending on all the costs involved. And so in order to budget for such an election, the city would need to budget for the maximum cost at the $5 per registered voter, and that would cost $200,640 is the estimate. It could be slightly less, but that should be the maximum. That would be for either the May 4th or August 31st all-mail ballot elections. If the Council opts for the November 2nd, where it would involve the polling stations, slightly more expensive, so between $5 and $7, and again, the maximum cost there would be $280,900. Some considerations. An election was just held with numerous candidates who had been qualified and who ran for the offices they pursued. There is significant cost, as mentioned, and time involved in waiting on another election. And the earliest seating for that vacancy that would be filled would be June if you have the May election. If you go with the August election, which is the last day of August, it would presumably be that you could certify that election in time in October. or if you did the November one, then it would be December, much like we just experienced. The city has many unfunded priorities and obviously some pandemic impact uncertainties, not only with the approximate $4 million that we had to scale back on with the last budget and have restored some parts of it. The forecasts have been a little conservative, but that's better to be there than not. We still have a list of other things that have been cut or are pending council decisions and how to fund those. A council appointment for a vacancy is by far the most common approach, not only here in Brentwood, but statewide. There was some news recently that San Ramon was the only other city in the county that had a vacancy from the election, and their council just recently decided to fill it by appointment with an application and interview process. The next highest voted candidate appointment has also had some precedence here in Brentwood. Based on our past practice since 1949, this is again looking at the council minutes that we have, which aren't always complete with all the information we'd like, but there have been approximately 18 council vacancies since 1949. 16 of those have been filled by appointment, and the minutes, again, are scarce, but they do reflect that 2 of those appointments were the next highest vote getter and are silent on the other appointments. So the process, how they derived at those appointments is not clear. And the 2 special elections, just kind of an interesting fact here, is that they occurred from council resignations. One occurred in August of 1984 and one in February of 2005. So none of the special elections that the city, at least in the past, has occurred from an election result. Any appointment to the city council must be an elector of the city and a registered voter. So laying out some potential options for the council as you discuss this, and I'll walk through this carefully here, but option A, we have 2 options for option A. One, there's both the special election, and option B, or if you come up with appointment. So option A1 is the all-mail ballot in either May or August. We would recommend, with your direction tonight, would come back on January 7th to consider those election dates with all of the certifying resolutions required to effectuate that. Again, there's that January 10th deadline if you want to select May 2021, or you have until February 6th if you want to pursue the August 2021 election. So that's option A1. If you want to have polling stations be a part of this election, that would be the November 2021, and we could put together either a special meeting or have a regular meeting in January where you would consider that November 2021 election. Again, February 6th is your deadline. If you wanted to consider appointing a candidate or a resident tonight, based on a series of motions, seconds, and then a vote, we would need to just make sure that they are qualified as a registered voter, a resident of Brentwood, and there's an affidavit they would have to sign, and we could take care of all that, and then come back at either a special meeting or a regular meeting, January 12th, to confirm that appointment with all the certifying documents and resolutions required. And again, if you wanted to just fill that appointment, you would have until February 6th to do so. If you wanted to pursue what has typically been a common practice citywide, statewide, we would plan to schedule a special meeting on January 7th to have that appointment process considered with applications at your discretion and interviews, and then see if a consensus could be found to appoint somebody. And then we'd come back at the regular meeting on January 12th to actually swear in that new member. If that option is selected, we've outlined a process in the agenda packet that lays out a potential application that was used at our most recent application process back in 2017. Obviously, we need to refine that and update the dates. And then a process that we've outlined that can be certainly amended if you have a different process in mind, outlining a way to narrow down if you have a large candidate pool of applications, or you can interview all of them or a select number of them at your discretion, and then also a recommended appointment process to narrow down where we could find some consensus among the council for an appointment. If you didn't find agreement and we're pursuing that process on January 7th or January 12th, then we could certainly schedule special meetings for an extended appointment process But again, you'd have till February 6th to effectuate that. Here's a calendar just showing what some of the potential dates would be. So here's the January 10th date, your deadline to have a special election that would be all mail ballot held on May 4th. That's in red. In the green is the deadline for any options to either appoint or have a special election. And that is February 6th. And again, that election could occur, if you wait till February 6th, it would occur on either August 31st in green or November 2nd in purple. And with that, again, have these options summarized succinctly here for your consideration, and we'll open it up for questions. Once you've had time to ask those questions, recommend you continue the public hearing for those who didn't already speak on the matter, hear their feedback, and then the council would then open it up amongst yourselves for any further discussion and follow up on any of these topics that we've raised. And so with that, I'll open up for any questions from the council.
Are there any questions, clarifying questions for staff of council?
Yeah, I have a question. Did the county give any indication on what the gap was from the $3.50 to the $5 per vote expense?
I'm not aware of how they computed those numbers. Margaret perhaps may have some more information that I don't. So Margaret?
I think it's just a range. They provide an estimate based on past special elections and costs that were incurred. And so at this time, it is just an estimate from them.
Okay. And I know you called out the 2 times that they did an appointment without an application process. How many times do we know for sure they've used an application process if we couldn't identify all of them?
The minutes that I was provided don't seem to reflect any details at all that were captured in those minutes about what kind of process they undertook in the past.
So out of the 18, we know for sure 2 were a direct appointment process from the next highest vote getter, but we don't know specifically how many were an application process, except for the one, like I know, Bailey was application. So we know for sure 1 application, 2 direct appointments. Everything else is kind of...
Yeah, so 18 vacancies, 16 appointments, and of those 16 appointments, we know for sure 2 were the highest vote getters, and then the 2 were the special elections.
So 2 appointments, 2 special elections, and then so far we know 1 application process, which was Bailey, correct?
Because I'm sharing my screen, I can't flip over to the agenda item to confirm, but I believe 2 were highest vote getter. And for sure we know there was at least 1 application process, perhaps more. But the minutes were not clear on that.
Okay, but we don't know for sure. Okay, that's what I was wondering. And I think that's all I was wondering about. Thank you.
Any more clarifying questions for staff?
Yes, I have a question. This is Councilmember Susanna Meyer. I'd like to know, when we're talking about the application process, if we do end up going that route, how much flexibility is there, and how involved would it be for us to change that application and potentially the criteria by which these applicants would be judged?
That would be at the complete discretion of the council once you give us some direction on what you'd like to see the criteria be. I'm sure Damien could weigh in as well that you couldn't include certain things that would be discriminatory, those kinds of things, but certainly asking them to assess what they think are their best qualifications that would suit them for the job. And we could come back with a list of those things, perhaps in a special meeting because of the time sensitivity, to make sure it's exactly what you'd like to have considered in the application process.
And could we involve the public in any type of forum or town hall type of situation?
Absolutely. If you could put something together fairly quickly to garner that feedback, that would be appropriate. And then I should also add that if you do start the application process and aren't content with it, that wouldn't preclude you from switching to one of the special election opportunities as well, as long as you met it within those timeframes that were outlined earlier.
Are there any more questions? Councilperson Meyer, or are you complete in your question?
I am complete. Thank you.
Seeing that there are no more questions of staff, we will open it up to public comment.
I'm just going to take the presentation controls back so I can do the timer. If you wish to speak under public comment, please use the raise your hand feature in WebEx. Staff will unmute you when it is your turn to talk and call upon your name if provided. There have been 66 emails received prior to the meeting related to this item, and they will be posted on our website after the meeting. And you will have 3 minutes to speak, and I will go ahead and share my screen just a moment. And I still have Sue Harper with her hand up. Sue, did you want to speak? I'll go ahead and unmute you now. Sue, go ahead.
I spoke before. Yeah, I spoke earlier. So.
Okay. Yeah, if you could unraise your hand. Thank you.
I'll take it, yeah.
The next speaker is Stephanie Aronson, followed by Vanessa. Stephanie, go ahead.
I'm opposed to them building back there at all, honestly.
Well, I'm not complaining about the no vote. Do you know that?
I'll come back to Stephanie. The next speaker is Rod Floor, followed by Carolina Villaseca. Mr. Floor, go ahead.
Thank you, Margaret. In a recent straw poll we conducted on social media, a resounding majority selected the option to appoint the next highest vote getter in the mayoral race, Karen Rary. The next highest selection after that was a special election. Other options garnered less than 10%. Making an appointment from a pool of applicants only received 4.4%. You all have an email from me that gives you more details. Clearly, the population wants their vote to count, either from the last election or in a new one. Between the two options, that's more than 90%. The public is leery of any application process for a couple reasons. Last time around, when there was an application process, it was seen as simply an exercise to go ahead and select someone to give it the appearance that other candidates were considered. Looking at the proposed selection process presented for your consideration tonight, they see a deeply flawed process that makes no real effort to learn anything about the applicants. Because the interview process is so scant, it appears to favor anyone known to the council members. It can very easily be abused by council members wanting to place a pre-selected favorite in the seat. There's nothing about the process that takes the will of the voters into account, nor is there any form of public involvement. Nearly everyone agrees that the one truly fair way to fill the seat is with an open election. But a special election can be expensive. The best compromise the city has used in the past was to choose the next highest vote getter in the previous election. This is a reasonable way to make a selection that honors the will of the electorate. It is simple, it is understandable, and it is what nearly 70% of respondents in our recent straw poll thought was the best way to do it. With less than 2% separating them, and with neither receiving even 30% of the vote, it seems the voters of Brentwood were pretty evenly split on the top two mayoral candidates. People would best be served by having both on the city council. Karen Rary has the needed experience in the respect of the community, as shown by the 8,619 votes she received in the mayoral race. Clearly, the community would be comfortable having her continue to serve. What point is there in looking further? Much is made of the expense of an election, but this application process is not free. Staff must manage it, and the council must divide the time and resources, and here we are talking about more special meetings. None of this is necessary. Karen Rary is an excellent choice, and the city council can simply offer her seat and get on with the important business of running the city. There's simply no need to go through the time and expense unless some council member has some serious objection to the people's choice being placed on the council. So my question is, why is the council even considering this? What possible motivation can any one of you have for keeping Karen Rary off the city council when she has such widespread popular support and is so deeply qualified? You cannot expect to find anyone more suited to the position. If it is some personal enmity, then I urge you to put it aside and do what is the best thing for our city and our voters. If it is something else, please explain exactly what that is to the public, because we will want to know. Thank you.
Thank you. The next we have is Carolina Villaseca. Carolina, go ahead.
Good evening, City Council. By the way, you'll be hearing from me at every meeting. So my name is Carolina Villaseca. Regarding the special election, I looked at all the options outlined in the agenda packet. Option 1, very expensive elections, and what would happen to City Council in the meantime? How would you resolve any ties? So let's say Johnny and Jovita voted one way, Susanna and Joel voted another way. Who's the tiebreaker? That is not clear, and I don't think we can hang out until May, not getting anything done, or worst case, November, and not getting anything done at the cost of between $140,000 to $280,000 that the city does not have right now during COVID. The second is the application process and interview. So this is problematic at best, considering there's actually no real criteria to run for mayor. Now all of a sudden we're asking for criteria to sit on the city council or to run for city council. You just have to be a resident and 18 years of age. I've seen application processes in the past, and they do end up being favoritism is just rampant. If people apply, then city council members would absolutely have to recuse themselves when it comes to familiarity with the applicants via business relationships or friendships. The next one is the application, the appointment of the next highest vote getter. The boundaries will have to be redrawn as a result of the census, and the election will rectify many years of city underrepresentation on the council. So in spring 2021, the lines will have to be redrawn based on shifting populations. And in 2022, Johnny Rodriguez's seat will be up for re-election, as well as the seat that is now vacated by Joel Bryant. So I think by 2022, we will definitely have a balanced council. And since we haven't had one for so many years, I don't think this appointing the second highest vote getter would be an issue because it will be rectified. So that is my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Kay Moreno Correa. I'm going to go unmute you now, and you'll be followed by Kathy Griffin. Go ahead.
Hi. Thank you very much. Good evening, council members. Again, congratulations to those who just recently.
Excuse me, your connection is breaking up a little.
The reason for my okay, can you hear me better now? Hello.
It's still a little. You're still breaking up a little bit. Do you want to disconnect? I'll go on to the next speaker and come back to you.
Thank you. Yes.
Kathy, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I have read the recommendations for filling the vacant council seat, and as far as I'm concerned, there are only 2 options. Vote to choose the next highest vote recipient for the at-large seat in the November 3rd election, which would be Karen Rary, or hold a special election to fill the seat. In this manner, the decision remains with the registered voters of Brentwood, as it should be, and not an arbitrary decision of random applicants, providing minimal information followed by a scant interview process that may or may not occur, and rounds of selection, which in the end may result in no agreement. By making the decision tonight, you will be and should establish a consistent process for each and every time the council is faced with this decision. The fact that years of history has different approaches to filling a vacant seat, either when a resignation occurs or when a sitting council person is chosen as mayor, is not acceptable. As our new council was seated with a vacancy, it was clear that the at-large voting public in Brentwood wanted 2 candidates to serve them, Joel and Karen, to serve on our council. With less than 2% of the votes separating the 2 of them, and both of them garnering almost 57% of the at-large mayoral vote, it's clear to me and many other residents Karen should be selected for the vacant seat for the 2-year term remaining until the 2022 elections. If you make a selection from applicants representing District 4, as Joel was quoted as considering, you are pre-selecting that district representative. That district hasn't voted for a candidate yet, and you'd be making that decision for them. In turn, you are not considering District 2 at all, just because you have an incumbent in this district. I consider that favoritism. Furthermore, those districts may be redrawn following the results of the 2020 census. So to make a decision or a selection for any specific district would be absurd. Save the city time and money and reflect the will of the voters, as well as the majority of speakers tonight, select candidates a vote count for an at-large seat in the November 3rd, 2020 election, Karen Rary, to serve out the remaining two-year term, our at-large term. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. I'll go ahead and try Kay Marina Correa again. Go ahead.
Hi, is it better connection?
It's still breaking up a little bit. Do you want to
Hello?
try? You want to go ahead and try to make your comment?
So I'll just try and hopefully I can get through.
Okay.
Yes, I just wanted to say that I am my name is Marina Correa, and I am a resident here of Brentwood, and I'm hoping that the council will take under consideration option B.1, which is appointing Karen Rary as the second highest vote receiver in our recent election. I don't fully believe that we are at a time in our where we can just continue to do past practice, because past practice doesn't mean that it's the best practice, especially in this current climate that we're in with COVID. We can not put a pause on the process and that decisions can be made later, or if there are any ties, or that we can have the funds set aside for an election. We don't have that luxury at this time because of COVID. Decisions have to be made. There's going to be big decisions that need to be made on the dwelling project. And it's important that we have individuals on the council that are already informed and that are qualified. And Karen Rary is qualified to be able to assume the role in the position, and there not be any loss of time to be able to make decisions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next speaker is Donald Smith, followed by Antonio Xavier. Donald, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Donald Smith, and I am a resident of Brentwood. My comments refer to the seat on the council made vacant by the election of Joel Bryant to mayor. I urge the council to appoint Karen Rary to fill that position for the two-year term. My reasons are as follows. A special election would cost the city at least $200,000 and would cost any candidate at least $5,000 to run. Additionally, there would not be a person seated until late next year. Number two, we just had an election and Ms. Rary received the second most votes of any candidate. Number three, she has been a council member and thus would not need time to learn the role or the issues involved. There is no one either on current council or a potential candidate to fill the vacancy who is more knowledgeable about the city or the workings of the city council. The vacancy is for a two-year term, and by the time the next election takes place, the district boundaries will have been redrawn because of the 2020 census, and who knows what the new district will look like. For those reasons, plus the fact that Karen Rary is a person of integrity, knowledge, and genuine desire to improve the lives of Brentwood citizens, I would urge you to appoint her to fill that vacant seat. Thank you.
Thank you. Antonio, I'm unmuting you now. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Antonio Xavier, and I am a resident of Shadow Lakes. I am here tonight asking you not to use an arbitrary appointment process to fill the vacant council seat. I am a strong believer in established precedent. The seat is the last at-large council seat we will have in Brentwood. It should be filled with input from the entire city. As an idealist, I prefer holding a special election for full transparency so all citizens of Brentwood can have their voice heard. However, I realize it may not be practical due to the time and cost. If the time and cost of the special election concern you as well, then I would ask you to appoint the next highest vote getter from the most recent at-large election. This option would be the best representation of votes from the entire city while also meeting the time and cost criteria. It would also be consistent with recent precedent here in Brentwood. When Bob Taylor was elected mayor in 2006, the second highest vote getter was appointed to the council to fill his vacancy. Thank you for your time.
The next speaker is Laura and Phil, and again, I can't see a last name, followed by Cynthiana Todor. Laura and Phil, go ahead.
Yes. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. My name is Laura Avila. My husband Phil will speak after me. What I'd like to do is recommend and throw my support toward appointing Karen to the vacant at-large city council seat, and there are several reasons for my decision. They're not in order of any importance. So they each carry the, same weight. Ms. Rary can hit the ground running without a learning curve due to her exemplary past experience as a city council member. This is increasingly important because we now have two very excellent but newly elected council members who themselves will have a great deal to learn. Karen has proven time and time again that she is a clear thinker who tirelessly researches issues before the council and uses sound judgment in her decisions. She also received the second most votes from her recent run for mayor, just coming in behind Mayor Bryant in a field of 7 candidates. Clearly, she has the support of a vast constituency throughout Brentwood. In addition to having a qualified person available to fill the at-large seat, I oppose a process to fill the vacancy that incurs any cost, that is, it would be a grave misuse of funds that could be better utilized to benefit the citizenry of Brentwood and businesses adversely affected by COVID. And now my husband would like to say a few words.
Hello, everyone. This is a no-brainer. We have a very qualified person. Let's save the city $300,000. And let's point someone extremely qualified who had, as everybody wants to point out, the second most votes, but came pretty close to being the most votes too. It was a close election. So she clearly has the support of the city, and clearly Karen's qualified. And let's put her in that position, and let's save the city money. Bye.
Okay, that's it. Thank you for listening to us. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Cynthiana, go ahead. I'm unmuting you now.
Hi, good evening. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak tonight, especially on this hot topic, if you will. How should Brentwood fill the empty seat in the city council today? But first, I want to pose a question. How can we make sure that the 66 emails on this topic were read by the city council members? They should be taken into consideration when making a decision tonight. I do trust that Jovita Mendoza and Susana Meyer will read the emails, and they did read the emails. I don't trust the other 2 council members because not just today, but also in the past, they proved that they didn't even scan over the emails based on what we've seen in their decision making. Back to the vacant council seat and how it should be filled. But first, sorry, I have to ask this. I just can't help to ask who wrote the proposed process. As a professional who deals on a daily basis with the process, design, process change, and implementation, this is a very poorly designed and written process. As outlined by the city officials, not elected officials, on top of being very cumbersome and confusing process, it will take the decision out of voters' hands, and this should be definitely stopped. I am here to say no, a big no to arbitrary appointments for city council by an application process, and let the voters decide the future of their city. Here are the options that I see viable today. Select the next highest vote getter from the 2020 mayoral race. Karen Rary received the next highest number of votes in all districts, showing that the voters decided to put their trust in her. The reasons already have been very well articulated by the previous speakers. If you decide to hold a special election, which is the second option, the decision will be in the hands of the voters, again, to elect the city council member for the vacant seat. This option can cover the entire city, but if you entertain a District 4 candidate, as it was suggested by city officials to some degree, why not have the election just for District 4? If the cost of a special election is really a showstopper, I have to say the expense is worth it. Since the benefits outweigh the investment, Brentwood cannot afford to have another city council that is serving special interest and paying their debt to their real estate investors and developers. Friends, as we know, the practice in the past only made our fire, emergency services, police services, school traffic, basic infrastructure, and community services in general worse, as opposed to make them better. Outside this option, anything is not acceptable. We know the history. It was even outlined in your packet that, again, I really hope you read. In some cases, Brentwood found itself in very embarrassing situations, so let's not repeat those. We can do better as city officials and as a community. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Mindy, followed by Martha Rodriguez. Mindy, go ahead.
Hi, this is Mike Weens. I just like to second everybody's voting for having Karen Rary appointed to the city council seat, as she was the next highest vote getter. That makes sense to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And if those who have already spoken can put their hands down, thank you. The next speaker, Martha, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you now. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Martha Rodriguez, and this is about the at-large city council seat. Since Karen Rarely was the second largest vote getter, she should get the vacant council seat. She has experience and is ready to hit the ground running. It makes no sense to spend an exorbitant amount of money on a special election. So yes to Karen Rarely for getting the at-large city council seat. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Marisol Valles, followed by Danny Dorman. Marisol, go ahead.
Thank you. I'd like to say this isn't business as usual, and we're not other cities. To say other cities do appointments, well, that's, really good for them, but not for Brentwood. Our city council has to earn our trust, and right now, we don't trust you. Show us that we should trust you. I want to let you know that my recommendation is that Karen Rary should be the next, as the next mayor candidate, should be on that vacant seat. Karen Rary should have that seat. If that's not an option, then an all-mail ballot special election anticipated to be held in May should be your second choice. The application process shouldn't even be an option for any of you right now. This vacant seat is at large, not a district race, so please do not choose someone from a district race. An application process does not have residents' approval. An application process is a slap to our face and the residents of Brentwood. The entire city of Brentwood should have a say in who has the seat. The application process has no resident voice. Please be aware, if the application option is chosen, you will have protests and recalls. Please be aware that voters are no longer willing to lose their voice. The application process is a loss for each resident of Brentwood. and we will not accept not having a choice in this matter. Plus, the application process is completely unfair since the applications are even being vetted and scrutinized by residents. They get a free pass, and it's all about special interests. Changing the application process for input or changing the application process now, as previously mentioned during discussion, is not okay. This option should be off the table completely. If you do not choose Karen Rary, it must go back to the people by a special election. I'm okay with that cost. There's no price tag for our representation. If you're during your discussion portion, if you decide to go with the application because you're speaking to people individually that didn't email the city clerk or the full city council, please document who is it that you have been talking to that want this process in the minutes. I want transparency to who you're talking on the side that maybe want the application process. This is important to have documented. In regards, Joel, this is your time to show us you really are for the people and not developers that funded your campaign. Please do not try to spin this. Please focus on what the residents are saying tonight. Johnny, you often mention that you're just listening, and so please make sure that you're listening clearly tonight. And Susanna, I'm excited to have you represent our district, and I know you will hear us. I appreciate your email response. Please hear us loud and clear. To everybody, no application process, period. Put Karen Rary in the vacancy. If not Karen, it must be a special election. Cost is not an issue. Choose option B1 with Karen Rary as your choice. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Danny Dorman, followed by Wayne Francis. Danny, you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Thank you. And again, I want to congratulate everyone there. Again, I'm speaking on behalf of what everyone else has said about the next highest vote getter. But this is for a different reason now. And I apologize in advance if I'm speaking out of order because I'm looking at D, request for future agenda items, and I don't know if we'll get a chance to say anything. So I want to tie in why we should have Karen join you because then it'll be 3 seasoned people that will help the 2 newbies. And I'm actually going to read for once. These past few years, I've seen our city change continually, some for the betterment of us, most not. We can pretend that it's the developer's fault, but that's not quite true. The group that needs to be held accountable is us, the citizens. We allow our employees, AKA you guys, to do as you please. And then the next are our non-elected officials. And that's my real challenge, and that's why, again, I hope Karen is able to return to address this because you folks rely too heavily on people who we haven't voted in. And, again, sometimes you really don't want to know how the sausage is made, and I'm getting a sense. So that's why I want to have it on the record that the Planning Commission, everyone from the city manager on down that hasn't been voted in, we need a top-to-bottom understanding of what it is they do. I know people have voiced their concerns about money going to you guys, special interests, and so on and so forth. Honestly, now, I think it's the folks that we don't vote in that we should be concerned about and you should be concerned about. And I am asking for a future agenda item, honestly, 2 things. One, Karen gets in the chair, and the other, you guys do a real top-to-bottom research on the planning because we haven't stuck to the plan since the plan was developed.
Remaining.
Thank you. That I have 25 seconds. Again, I hope Karen is the logical choice. And I hope that in one of the new requests for future agenda items that you guys really look into the planning, whether it's the Planning Commission, the project management team, the guy who sweeps the carpet, doesn't matter to me. I think they really all need a top-to-bottom review. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Wayne Francis, followed by Vanessa. Mr. Francis, go ahead.
Thank you, Margaret. Good evening, council members, and a special welcome to the latest council members, Susanna Maya and District 3, which is my district, and Jovita Mendoza of District 1. Happy to have you on board. As I said, my name is Wayne Francis, and I'm a 17-year resident of Brentwood. And my sentiments regarding the filling the at-large position is real clear. There's no need for a special election costing up to $200,000, and we've heard here this evening up to $280,000, which I think is just kind of ridiculous. The logical choice would be the next top vote getter for the at-large position. It's been stated by, I think, every single person who's spoken this evening. I don't want to belabor some of the points that have been made previously, but there are some that I want to add my own thoughts on. The voters have stated their choice in the runner-up candidate for the last election, Karen Rary, who I have witnessed over the past 4 years and seen her unequivocal passion for service to our community. She is always prepared for the council meetings, and her engagement with the community at large is unparalleled in my 17 years experience in Brentwood and watching the city council. I'd also like to address Vice Mayor Johnny Rodriguez. A few sessions ago, you stated your opposition to the city funding the front entrance of the Deer Ridge development with the issue of the failed golf course. And your statement that at that time, where you were opposed to the city forwarding $100,000, and I quote, for trees and grass. I hope that you hold that same line on this issue regarding the unnecessary costly special election, which there won't be any thing of significance other than picking the candidate who should be appointed. In closing, I sincerely hope the council chooses Karen Rary to fill the at-large council seat. Brentwood needs her at this critical point in time. To choose any other random candidate who did not run for office would be ludicrous. I urge the council to appoint Karen Rary, option B1, and post haste. I know you'll do the right thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next speaker is Stephanie Aronson. And if I could ask the previous speakers to put their hands down in the WebEx. Thank you. Stephanie, go ahead.
Hi, I want to speak on the city council seat. Number one, you know, we just had an election, and it was extremely divisive in this community. I think we're all aware of some of the incidents that took place. And I'm not even sure why you guys are considering a special election, because you just had an election. The second highest vote getter should be appointed. And I second the opinion that the city council has to earn this community's trust. And right now, it's kind of wavering. I believe it's dead. I believe if you appoint somebody, it's just going to be an absolute display of government overreach and lack of representation of the people. And that's all I got to say. Thank you.
At this time, there's no additional hands raised in WebEx. Oh, I do have one more. I'm going to unmute Greg Robinson now. Greg, go ahead.
Good evening, new Mr. Mayor, Joel, and welcome council women, ladies, to the council, and I'm very excited to see you there. I also am going to just chime in real quick and kind of maybe wrap this up. And a lot of people are saying, why are we even considering the special election or the other options? I just think it's a formality that we need to go through as a council, but it absolutely does make sense based on what everybody just said. Why spend the money? Why take the time and the energy when we had an election? The people of Brentwood said they liked Karen Rary, and I think that I also agree with everybody that let's give Karen another crack. We haven't heard from Karen yet. I don't know if she's out there, but we should see if Karen maybe even wants the job. But I'm sure she does, and I would highly recommend that you guys take the easy road on this case and appoint Karen, and let's move on and get on with the next set of business that we have at hand. But also, too, just Margaret, I think it is a great idea if we look at that idea when you get all those mail-in comments, but maybe even summarize that if the topic is, yay or nay or right or left, that you say we had 27 people that said yay and 22 people that said nay. That way the council would at least all know what the the overall arching message was from the people. And because this is all new to us, doing this whole thing Zoom, this is my first time interacting with the Zoom council, and it's kind of cool. And again, congratulations to you all, and Johnny and Joel, keep up the good work, and Jovetta and Susanna, I wish you lots of luck, and we're here to help and support. Thank you.
Thank you, and I do have another hand raised, Amelia. I'm going to unmute you now. Go ahead.
Yes, hi, my name is Amelia Villarreal, and I'm new at this, so I'm not sure if this is the right timing, but I wanted to speak on the DWLE project. I know I'm a little late for it, but I just wanted to address my concerns and say that this should be looking at all the residents and everybody that's going to be displaced and losing their jobs if this goes through. Yes, we can paint a pretty picture and we can get new playgrounds and everything, but all these people losing their jobs and not be able to have a home to. And these are essential workers that put food on our table. They feed you guys, they feed us, they feed everybody, and we should definitely look and make the best decision for our communities and for everybody that's involved and all these kids that need a home. They work so hard and they put food on our table every single day. During wildfires, the pandemic, they're still out there working, and be able to displace them and move them and, not keeping them in the best interest, I think is very not reasonable. And I think that it should be relooked at. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have one more speaker, Dorina Morita. I apologize if I've butchered your name. I'm going to unmute you now. Go ahead.
Hi, good evening. You said it correctly. Thank you. It's Dorina Morita, and I'm also here to put on record that I'm opposed to the Dwali Mori project and the rezoning of the land. The main reason for that is that it will displace a lot of people, mainly local farm workers and their families, which is very concerning. And the fact that these people are always overlooked is what raises the biggest concern. So we are looking for city officials to really reconsider selling this property, and for just to keep in mind the people that this will affect, not just the people who it will benefit. This is also a regional problem that will affect so many. So that's just pretty much. I would just like for people to think of the people that that this is going to affect, not just those who it will benefit. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just wanted to remind the speakers, this is the council consideration of the council vacancy. Are there any additional speakers that wanted to speak on this item? Mayor and council, I'm not seeing any additional hands raised at this time.
Okay, well then at this time we will close public comment and we will enter into council discussion. And we'll begin again alphabetically. Councilperson Mendoza.
Yeah, I have some comments and I've been taking some notes. Find the right page of notes. I'm going to start off with just saying that after reading all of the emails we got today, after hearing everyone right now, I am against an application process, and I don't think that I'm going to change my mind on that. Listening to what Tim said, we only can document 5 of the appointments and what happens, and 2 special elections, 2 appointments for second highest vote getter, and only 1 was used in application. And I actually did look up that one in the press to see what the feedback was. And if you read the press, people were not happy about it all. They felt like the fix was in. And we know that Brentwood residents are apprehensive about how they feel about us and what we're doing for them, and is it in their interest and not in special interest. So the application process just feels really uneasy. It's the one with the least amount of resident engagement. And I know we can get it, but by the time we get it, we're going to be down the road for 60 days anyway. I mean, if we rewrite an application, because let's be honest, I read the application, I wouldn't hire anyone with that application. There's like no teeth in it at all whatsoever. So if I wouldn't hire anyone in my place of employment, I'm not going to put them in charge of it for all of the residents. It's just not going to happen. Let me try to think of what else, because I had some more information. So I don't want to spend the money on a special election. I really don't. But for me, I'm just feeling that Karen Rary was selected. She was the second highest vote getter. So the people have spoken. We have gotten, I know that Margaret said 66 emails, but I actually counted, between the ones that I saw that we got, which was 56 in my email box, plus the 19 that went to the city clerk, plus 2 families that were part of one email. That's 77, plus the 22 people we just heard. That's a pretty good turnout. And I've been to a lot of meetings. Like, that's a pretty good turnout in my point of view. So we've gotten the emails. Karen got the second highest vote. And not only did she get them for all of Brentwood, because you always can have a mix and match with the districts. I pulled the information, and if anyone wants the spreadsheet, I'll send it to them. I pulled the information from the Contra Costa Voters office, and for every district, like District 1, she came in second. District 2, she came in second. District 3, she came in first. And District 4, she came in second. And it's not like she came in second, really close. It's like a far gap between her and the next person. And I know someone, had mentioned about having District 4 and District 2 representation. Well, Paul Affolette, Ryan Raimondi, Ed Shuck, Steve Young, were all District 4. And if people in those districts felt that passionate about having district representation, I would have expected their numbers to be higher, even in a mayoral race, like if that was so important to them. I didn't see that in the numbers. So again, the emails, when you go through them, and I made notes, like what are people saying? They're specifically calling Karen out by name. Like they're saying second vote, highest vote getter, and they use her name. So there really isn't any ambiguity as to what people are saying when they email. So I would feel most comfortable with just appointing Karen. And I think it would be great. We could get it done tonight. We could appoint her. We can have her up and going. She would bring back some bench strength that I think we really need. And I think we all have some stuff to learn. I know Suzanne and I are new, so we are all new. Johnny's been here 2 years, and, he's getting up to speed. But I've never heard anyone, she is kind of like an encyclopedia of what goes on, and I think it would be to our benefit to have that resource on the council. So those are my comments kind of off the cuff after hearing everybody. So, yeah, that's it for now.
Okay, thank you. Councilperson Meyer.
Thank you. And I prepared something to read because, honestly, as much as I prefer going off the cuff and speaking from the heart, I prepared my notes from the heart, and I don't want to forget anything. So I'm going to try and skim over this as much as I can to streamline. But I really want to thank the community for being so engaged in this discussion and the decision involved with it. The emails and the calls and conversations on social media platforms, hugely appreciated, and frankly, what I was hoping to see tonight and would like to see moving forward. I'd like to start by saying I would rather not have to resort to a special election, but if we feel the residents are willing to do that for the sake of fair representation of what their desires are, then so be it. The primary function of an election is to give the people the chance to voice their opinions, and the primary role of the City Council is to listen to those opinions. In the case of filling our open 5th council seat, the residents have already spoken. They've spoken their election votes, put Councilmember Karen Rary in a very close second. They've spoken, they submitted, over 70 emails and then additional calls to council and city staff about this agenda item. They've spoken, they created the online polls and presented them to community groups across the city. And they've spoken, they called in with very, very few exceptions, and can't even think of very many. They told council loud and clear that they are in support of Karen Rary taking on the 5th seat and supporting the residents in this way. And when I speak personally about Karen Rary being in this 5th seat, I'm speaking as a council member, but also as a resident. In my role, it's my job to remove any emotion and personal opinion from my decisions and make them based on objective facts. And I have no doubt that I'm able to do that tonight. I've watched Karen on the dais many times over the years, both in person and online, and I've seen her question details request additional clarification. I've seen her push back when she felt that residents weren't heard. She's represented residents and advocated for projects and processes in every part of the city, not just in her own district, which didn't even exist then. She's engaged with elected offices, I can say this on a personal basis here, on a regional, county, and state level, more so than others have. We've witnessed her communications and her transparency time and again. She's made herself accessible through her regular meet and greets, not only during the campaign season, but well prior to that. It's clear to me she's taken this position very, very seriously and has dedicated herself to being a public servant in every way that means. Regarding the potential for appointment through an application process we're hearing tonight, and I have to agree, this is not representative of what the residents want. Most residents are against it. The application itself and limited interviews can't possibly tell us everything we need to know in a regular campaign process, the way we learn there, and in a really well thought out interview process for any job that has any merit. I don't believe the appointment process is a viable way of getting a truly qualified and dedicated candidate because of that. And let's face it, as much as Councilmember Mendoza and I are familiar with this realm from the other side of the dais, and we've put in a lot of time and effort into quickly getting ourselves up to speed and being able to make these big decisions, we are both new to our roles. The idea that we could bring in a fifth council member with a history of knowledge and experience that could truly benefit the council as a whole and make us a stronger team from the start is extremely appealing to me. She could continue the work that she's already been doing and working on the projects and having those relationships that she's already got with the residents to benefit everything that we've got moving forward and currently pending. To be honest, I would really need some help understanding how other council members could consider an ambiguous application process as a wiser alternative to something we already know, a known entity. We won't always agree on decisions, and I've seen that in the past. You don't always agree on decisions, but we do owe it to the residents of Brentwood to listen and truly consider their input without personal bias. If it comes to it, I will do what I need to do to support the interests of the people of our city, and if they decide they want a special election because we can't represent the people appropriately, then I will vote for that. The residents have already spoken, and I agree that Karen Murray is the best fit for our open fifth seat. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Councilman Rodriguez.
Yes, I'd just like to thank everybody that sent their emails. And just so you know, I did read the emails. I know it was said that I didn't, but I did take the time to read them. And I see that there is a lot of support for Karen Murray in regards to the last election. For me, the special election is obviously very costly. I think that it's not for me. I do have some concerns in regards to both Mendoza and Meyer's suggestions in regards to Rary. One is currently we have 2 council members and a mayor that live in the same, within, I'd say, a mile within each other or a mile and a half. And if Councilmember Rary was to come back as a council member, that means that everybody would live within a mile within each other. I know that's concerned with people that I've talked to. That's a concern for me. It goes back to what it used to be. That was one of the biggest reasons why I was asked to run when I did, was there was lack of representation from the whole community. And I feel that that would just take us back to that. So that's very concerning for me. Also, at the same time, I was really happy to hear that, you know, if we did go with the application process and the interview process, that we would be able to meet with the community and get public input to help put together what that process could look like, right? The process I think that Ms. Mendoza looked at, and obviously is not sufficient enough. Well, that's the great thing, is that the council, we could actually give input to make sure that that thing's put together in a way where it's effective. You know, I'll be honest with you, I've never had to go through this process, but I know it's going to be a great opportunity if all 4 of us had input on what that could actually look like. And at that time, for me, then Councilmember Rary could then also put in an application and go through that process as well. I feel that, you know, when Councilmember Rary ran for mayor, it was at large, and I think there's a lot of other great people that ran for districts that weren't at large that probably would have done pretty well if it was at large. So I think there's some other people within the district elections that may want another opportunity that went through the same process as everybody else did in campaigning, walking door to door, putting out information. I think there's a lot of people that may take this opportunity that have already won, have educated themselves on some of the issues and things that are going on in the city, but also have put in the legwork in regards to putting themselves out there to the public. So I think that when we talk about Karen Ray being the second, that is true for the mayor's race. But then again, there could have been people that were running for specific council member seats within districts that could have done just as well, or maybe in no disrespect to you, Mayor, but maybe even possibly would have won your seat, right? We would never know. So I think that there's a couple of things that concern me. One of the biggest one is that everybody will live in the same 2 districts within our city. That honestly, for a long time, certain portions of this community have lacked representation. I know I'm not the type of council member that comes up here and says every single little thing that I do for different areas of this community, but I'll be honest with you, there's always things to do in other portions of the community. And for me, it'd be nice to see people from those areas have the same opportunity to possibly be on this council. If we select the person that took second in the mayor's race, that wouldn't give those people those same opportunities. And I think this is a great opportunity to possibly find people out there that could be just as effective as anybody else. So for me, I think the application process and the interview process works for me with us getting as much input from the residents, because I do agree with Mendoza and Meyer. I think that the residents should be part of that process in regards to helping us figure out what would this candidate, what are some of the qualifications. But also I think with our input, I think it would be with us being part of that process as well would be very good. So that's my input. I feel that, another thing that was really nice to hear, and I think one of Councilmember Mendoza or Myers, you had asked Tim, but I think Tim had mentioned that we could drop the process at any time. So once we're going through this process, if we feel like it's not going in the direction that it needs to, and it's not really going to be a representation of the whole community, right? And the whole community is very large, it's 60-some thousand people, we could pretty much let them know that we will not want to continue with the process and go in another direction. So I feel that I'd rather at least we have that option and opportunity that if it doesn't feel right, then we move on and then we figure it out, right? So that's where I'm at. So just to clarify a little where I'm at is I'm not for the special election. I think it is too much, and I'm also not in support of us just appointing someone from a last election. Yes, that's it.
Can I ask you a question real quick about that? So
yeah,
on the one hand, you're saying you want more representation on the east, but on the other hand, you're saying that you want people who ran to rerun again, which they're 2 different things, right?
No, I don't want any. It doesn't need to be representation from the east. My concern is if you look at the demographics of the map, everybody lives about a mile to a mile and a half from each other, and that would be 3 council members and a mayor. So it's not that it has to be a representation of the east. At least at one point, the mayor was on somewhere out here, right? And then myself out here. So I'm not saying it has to be a representation from the east, but at least a lot more than a mile and a half to 2 miles from each other when we talk about representation of this community. Because to me, Jovita, Councilmember Mendoza, is that when you're walking in your community, you're walking your dog, you're walking your kids, you're driving to the schools, you're able to interact with those communities and know the issues in those communities a lot more just by living there and having those small interactions or those, small talks. And I think it's very difficult if everybody is from one portion of this community. I really don't believe that represents the whole community.
Yeah. I don't know what the process is for us. I don't know if we can have crosstalks or anything like that, but I beg to differ with that. And I think that that we get as involved as possible as we can. Before I was elected, I was involved in the Dwelly Mori issue. Before I was elected, I was helping the Hijas del Campo. I still am on the back end of that, helping with them. That is all on that side of town. I, try to help Cynthiana with her Lone Oak project. And so I think that that comment is a disservice to someone who has done stuff and tried to help. The other thing is, if I remember correctly, Karen worked a lot on Goodwill. She did a lot of the research that got that project defeated, right? And that's not her area. She actually went to Cinziana's house and tried to work on that project with her. That's not Karen's area. You know, she worked on Blight.
Yeah, but I also think...
No, when I met Karen, I met Karen over at El Camino. I didn't meet her on my side of town, even though she lives here. So I think to say when we signed a document that says that we're supposed to govern at large, and you say that, I'm feeling like you're telling me as a council person that I kind of got to stay on my side of town, right? Like, because you want your representation.
I've never said that. Yeah, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that's fine. I mean, there could be certain topics and issues, but I'll be honest with you, is look how many years, and that former council member was for 4 years. What changed in that area? What has changed in those older areas? I haven't seen a lot of changes. I mean, it's great that we address the issues, but are we really changing those areas to hopefully have some of the essentials and some of the things that other communities have here in Brentwood? I think so. So my thing is this. My thing is that I hope that you understand that I do represent the whole city. I got friends all over the city, so I do represent the whole city, and I ran on that in the sense of I didn't run through a district. I ran at large. My thing is that it does make a difference, a little bit of a difference when you do live in the communities sometimes in comparison to, could you imagine all three council members and the mayor all live within a mile and a half within each other? I mean, I get it. Doesn't mean you can't do your job. Doesn't mean that you don't have the heart and passion for the whole community. I'm not saying that, and you won't. I'm not trying to say that at all. But what I'm saying is it would be nice to give others the same opportunity that may not live in that area.
Can I point out, Councilmember Rodriguez, that Karen very nearly won the mayoral race, and if she had, we would be in that same exact situation for the next 2 years.
Okay, but she didn't. I mean, that's just the reality.
She didn't, but this is an at-large position.
I understand. Well, if it's an at-large position, then I think that we should give people through the whole community the opportunity to be part of this on the council. She ran to win mayor. She didn't run to win a council seat. You know what I mean? So my thing is, if we're going to open this up as a council seat, then we should give that opportunity to everyone within this community that feels that they have what it takes to sit up here and make decisions that are right for everybody.
I'd also like to ask then if we can find out of the callers and the emailers where they live, which districts they live in, how many live in District 3 versus how many live in other parts of the city. If they agree with...
I don't know. Yeah, no, and I hope that you guys are not taking this as, anything towards anybody. You know what I mean? It's not. But I'll be honest with you, someone that's looking on the outside looking in from where I come from and from, being in this city all my life, I mean, it'd be nice to have representation from various areas within the city.
So you said you spoke to people. How many people did you speak to that said they wanted someone specifically from that side? Because
I'll be honest with you.
The email I got said Karen. I did not get one email that said anything but Karen.
That's fine. I mean, I can't give you an exact number. I can't throw anything like that. But, I mean, obviously, I know a lot of people within all this community. So there's a lot of areas that I'm at that most people are not. And obviously, they would like that. So, I mean, I know you received emails. I received the same emails. But at the same time, like I said, that does make me nervous that, once again, we go back to the whole council is in two districts, if that.
I think that if you're worried about your side of town not having representation, I hope that with me here, that's not something.
No, I don't think I'm worried about just my side of town, Councilmember Mendoza, but I'm also another side of town, right? I mean, it's just not one side of town. I just think that, once again, just to create a balance would be good. And I'm not saying we may do an interview process and go through applications, and at the end of the day, the person who lives in that community may be the best representation. Maybe Karen Rary puts an application in and she's the best one, and that's great. You know what I mean? But how are we not opening that door up for anybody else?
You know better than anyone. I mean, you and I have watched Karen on these meetings. You know better than anyone else on this call Karen's qualifications. You know, so I think that if you're waiting for an application process to see if Karen Rary is qualified, I just don't understand, right? If you have someone else in mind that has told you they want to run, I think you need to sit down right now and really talk about their bench strength. And inside, who do you feel is the most qualified when it comes to having two new people? You're getting ramped up. Joel's a new mayor for the first time. I think it would be a big disservice to our city to not choose Karen.
No, that's fine, and that's your opinion, and that's the beauty of being in this position, right? We all have our own opinion, right? I just hope that we're trying to do things that are right for the whole community, right? I respect your opinion, Councilmember Mendoza, and also Myers. I respect yours too. I have my issues and my concerns, and I just feel like an application process will open those doors up for more people to hopefully have an opportunity.
And to me, it's basically, I think of like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It's the inmates running the asylum or something. Like, we, the elected officials, should not be electing. Like, that's what the residents are for. So I know that process exists, but I feel like that is not something that I want it to be a representation of the people. We have enough issues with representation in federal government, in state government. We don't need that in our city. We need to make sure that.
And I agree with that, Councilmember Mendoza. I really do agree with that. And I guess I was told this one time, right? Because I struggle with that too. I'm always about the community, the community, the community, the community. And one time an old friend of mine told me, you got to understand they voted you to represent that community. Also, so sometimes we have to make some hard decisions, which I'll be honest with you, I'm all about community input. I've been doing it for many, many years. But my thing at the same time, we've also been elected to be in these positions to have some hard conversations and have to make some hard decisions. So I know it's tough, right? I mean, I wish we could have community forums every day, right, and have input, but those are just not the reality, But so yeah, I agree with you. I feel what you're saying.
Okay. Can I just mention that having asked that question about community input for the application process, I was not that Tim didn't give the right, a well thought out answer, but I was not satisfied that would fairly represent the wishes of the city and the residents of it.
And what would that time frame be, right? So we would all have to get together and write a new application process. We would have to have special meetings for that. Then it would have to be done. It would have to be looked over by the attorney. It would have to come back us for final approval. We would have to schedule meetings with the community so that they can come in and speak and meet with all of these candidates. And then when do we have? I mean, I want the residents to interview the candidates, not just us. It should be them. So I just think by the time we get there, it's 60 days, and we're going to end up at an election anyway.
I heard you, Councilmember Mendoza.
This is going to be fun, Councilmember Rodriguez.
No, I'll be honest. I just feel that, like I said, those are my concerns. And I'll be honest, there's people that may have ran in your district and also District 3 that might have done really well if they would have ran for mayor, right? But they ran for a district, so they were closed into a certain area, right? What if they would have ran at large? What if they've done better? I don't know. You know what I mean? And so there's a lot of what ifs, right? And my thing is, the only closest thing that we could get to that's affordable is an application process and an interview process. I just don't feel like they should just be given to one person like that.
Well, they've done it before, so it's not a new process. It's not a new idea. I mean, Bob did it once. I'm just saying. I don't know, Joel, I don't know if you want to start, your comments.
I know, Joel, you got it too easy right here, man. You're sitting there.
There's nothing going to be easy about this decision for any of us.
Let's get the mayor in the hot seat.
Yeah.
Well, there's a couple things. First of all, I did want to address the question as to whether I read the emails, and absolutely I read them. It took a lot of time to read them for all of us. But if somebody takes the time to write a letter to a council person, I think it's our duty to honor them enough to read it, regardless of what we feel about it. And if we don't listen to the people that we represent, we can't possibly do the job that I think all of us want to do. There's been a lot said about the voting, and the voices of the voters are absolutely essential in anything that we do, because that's who we represent. And so taking a look at what the voters said during this last election, over 72% of them wanted an additional choice, made an additional choice other than Councilperson Rary. That's a huge amount of people that wanted to put their voice in, that they wanted some diversity. When I was asked about District 4, I understood that this is an at-large seat, and we can't recommend an election for District 4. The point I was trying to make was that I had, even back then, some concerns about the density of where our council is going to be living and potentially could be living. And it has always been a process up until recently that we were all at large. And in that process, we began to, at least I did, and I've heard other council people also did, they had a lot of input from the community that they were not comfortable not having representation from other areas, not just other areas and other demographics, but like Councilmember Rodriguez has been saying, I don't know what I don't know in certain in roads, communities, cul-de-sacs, until I spend time there on a regular basis. I've spent a lot of time. I have an office here downtown, not the city office, but I have an office here downtown, and I'm at late at night often. And there are things that when I started being in the office here late at night downtown, there are things I was totally unaware of, even with all the many thousands of hours I spend riding as a chaplain with the police department down every street and nook and cranny. I don't live there, even though I'm driving through there and I see things that are going on. But I really feel like as a council, and what your input was about the process, I completely agree with. The interview process is something that I believe every one of us have helped to form interview processes in our vocations. This isn't something that we would have to take a long time doing. I think that if we each we were in a meeting, we had a single meeting on Zoom, we could come out with a very thorough process to vet the applicants, but also a process that would save the city. I am not for a special election simply because of the immense cost, and that $200,000 could be spent to help our small businesses and our families here in town. I agree 100% with what you said with that. But at the same time, I think there is a fair process that can be brought forward that will give opportunity for a large amount of the community, and by a large amount, again, over 72% voted for other choices. And so that gives me a really good idea that our community wants some difference than what we've had in the past. And I want to hear what that difference is. And I want to have their input, but I also want to give opportunity to people. There are some extremely talented and high quality individuals that live here in town that have lots of experience in their vocations, in living in the community. We have very talented people, even in the people that ran for our districts and ran for mayor. There are some very talented people there that have tremendous skill sets that will be a great asset to the community. And so I would like to see their opportunity in a very, clearly it will be a very intense process, but I'd like to see let them have an opportunity to apply as well and represent a larger demographic, a larger area, a geographical area of Brentwood as well. And so that's what I would like to see. I hope that we can get to that point. But I understand and respect your viewpoints. I understand why you have them to a degree. You were very clear in why you both felt that way, and so really I'd like to go and have more conversation at this point as a council to see what we can come to.
I think after Measure L and that council wearing the scarlet letter L for the rest of the time, and because they, residents that came and spoke up weren't heard, I'm not ready to do that. I cannot sign up for an application process at all. So either for me, we select the second highest vote getter in the at-large race, or, we go to an election. But I will not do that again to our residents of Brentwood. That was done before. They were infuriated then. They did not care about the spend then, and I'm not going to do it now.
Oh, just really quick, Councilmember Mendoza, I'm sorry, I keep messing you up. Councilmember Mendoza, when you say Measure L in regards to the council, what do you mean by that? You won't do that again? I don't understand.
We did, because I was a resident then, we didn't care about the spend. We wanted it to go to a general election. And in order to save money, the council chose to do a special election that would be paid for by GBN. We didn't want that. We didn't care about the money spent. We wanted to do what was right for us. And you got all of the emails and all of the feedback, and you completely didn't care. You guys voted for the special election. And I felt like that was a slap in the face now, and I'm not ready to slap my residents in that same fashion. I really am not. Like, if someone felt that passionate at what you guys are saying, our notes would show it. Our emails would show it. No one has shown me not one piece of communication or anything that shows anything different. Right now, it's just hearsay. There's no facts to any of that.
I would say that the 72% of the votes was a pretty loud communication that isn't hearsay.
Well, no, I disagree with that. I think that what we're talking about right now is the people who came in right now who felt passionately enough about this, and this has been all over social media. So people have heard about it, they've had a chance to talk, and none of them have said that they want an application process. Every single one says Karen. So I am not going to go against the will of the people who have taken the time and the effort that feel passionate enough about this to email today to undo what they want. They want Karen. I'll give them Karen. They get her for 2 years, and then someone else is going to run in District 4. And I think for me, being new, I think it'll be a benefit. She is a wealth of knowledge. We all know that. I mean, just watch the last 2 meetings she was on. It was just, she is phenomenal when it comes to knowing the history of what goes on in the city. I've never heard it from anybody else. So, I mean, as a newbie, I kind of want her here so she can guide us a little bit.
And I'd like to ask, if you're talking about the application process being a fair process and doing due diligence, how do you think you're going to find someone more qualified, very specifically for this role at this exact time than Karen Rary? I would like to know how you justify that thought.
I'll be honest, it's a little bit awkward having a conversation about somebody that's not even here to talk for themselves, right? It's a little bit, I know Karen Rary. My thing is, I guess we won't know unless we go through that process. I couldn't really tell you how that would look or who that would be. I don't have anybody specific in mind. I just know there's a lot of people in this community that either have sat in positions like this, but also that have kept up with what's going on in the city. I think that we had some wonderful people that ran against you, that ran against Mendoza, that have, did other things in this community that if they're interested, maybe they would apply and maybe give them an opportunity. I'll be honest, Karen doesn't have an upper hand. I mean, to be honest, she's been on the council for 4 years. She dedicated her life to the council, don't get me wrong, and to, being in this position. But also sometimes that doesn't make you qualified. Just because you sat in a position, just because you're able to speak very well, just because you're able to do certain things very well, doesn't mean you're qualified, right? There could be a lot of other people that are just as good that we're not getting an opportunity to because we're just choosing the next person, right? So for me, that's why the application process is, and the interview and application process is important, because maybe there will be someone else. And if Karen Rary wants to apply, then obviously she should. I mean, nobody's telling her not to. But we'll never know if we just go with, who was the second. Say that again,
well, let's be honest. If you're not choosing Karen now, what would make you choose her? Like, why would we even go through the application process? It just seems a little weird. So if you think that she doesn't have qualifications, can you articulate what the developmentals are in regards to Karen Rary and why?
I'll be honest with you, Councilmember Mendoza, I'm not here to critique anybody. I'm not here to pass judgment on anybody. I know that, you know what? Karen Rary did a good job. She did do her stuff. I'm not here to down anybody. That's not me. That's not who I am. As a person, that's not who I am. I don't work that way. I just feel like I'm concerned about every council member, except for myself and the mayor, living in the same area, / not opening up the opportunity for others to have this opportunity to possibly be on the council. So it has nothing to do with Karen Rary's qualifications. It has nothing to do with Karen Rary as a person. My thing is that concern, and then also, why not open the door? And if we see that she's the best fit, then it is what it is, right? But we won't know unless we open that opportunity. But I'm not here to knock Karen Rary. I'm not here to say she didn't do a great job. I've known Karen Rary longer than most people up here. I've known Karen for a long time. Great heart, great person. So I'm not here to judge her for that.
I just think, what would keep, see, we have to talk about Karen, right? That's who everyone is bringing up, right? Uncomfortable. It is what it is. And again,
like I said,
so this is a difficult conversation. But I guess for me, it's like, what's the point of going to an application process? Because I can tell you, I haven't seen anybody, even the people who ran, didn't show up at city council meetings, right? So I can't think of anyone who ran that I would think has stronger skill set than Karen Rary. So, and then there's going to be some dark horse that's going to come in with a better skill set that I've never heard of.
And maybe, Councilmember Mendoza, that maybe...
I'll put her name into the application. I don't know.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
No, I understand.
And then it's just weird, because it's like on one hand you're talking about representation and where we live, but on the other hand you're talking about, qualifications, and it's just, there's just not, it's either one, it's just a lot.
Well, in the interest of being transparent with the people who are watching tonight, there were a very large number of emails that came in, and many of them did list their addresses or their part of town. And I can tell you personally, they were not all from this area of town. They were widespread all across the city. So clearly for these people to have called in and emailed us from across the city, they do feel represented. And I can say that I do think if we end up in an application process, we're not going to find someone who's more qualified based on very recent hands-on experience with the issues that we are facing right at this very moment. And I can also say, having listened to many, many council meetings and attended in the past, I'm seeing so many names that I've never seen before. These are people that are speaking tonight and writing in for the very first time because they feel so passionately about this. And I think we need to give that the value and the input level that it really deserves, and listen to them. And I go back to Mayor Bryant. I would love to hear your answer to the question too about, do you think they're going to find someone in an application process who really does have the qualifications, or even more so than what Karen can provide to this?
I think that it is possible to find someone that is equally qualified, and perhaps not with some of the very intimate information for local issues. Clearly, anyone that's been on council for 4 years would, like Councilperson Rodriguez said, they would have the advantage. But at the same time, I think that, you know, we've heard the analogy, a slap in the face 2 or 3 times tonight. I think it would be equally a slap in the face for, again, 72% of the residents specifically chose not to ask for Council Member Rary to stay on council. That is an enormous amount of people that wanted a change.
Now the council is discussing all of the topics. It's interesting to see there.
Mayor Bryant, can I ask how much of the population voted against having you in your current seat?
Probably about the same amount, but I was running for the mayoral seat. The point I'm making here, and everyone knows how close this race was, but the point I'm making is to ignore the desires of 72% of the community that specifically voted for someone else is also, I would say, a slap in the face if we have an opportunity to give them a chance to voice their opinion through an appointment process that we create so that we can have them get the opportunity for their voices to be heard, for their communities, their ethnicities, their communities. We're living in some very troubled times where people feel very railroaded because of their ethnicities, because of their cultures, because of so many different things. And we have got to, from this point on, and I think Brentwood has done a pretty good job in the past in trying to represent everyone. But if you don't allow everyone to come and speak and then make the hard decisions that they voted for us to make, then we are truly only giving lip service to the idea of everyone being of the same value in our community.
So the thing about that is the only way you're going to get that is to have an election. Because at the end of the day, it's still you, Johnny, Susanna, and myself that are going to vote. So if you really believe that in your heart, then it's an election process. Because everything else is just you're going to be making a decision, I'm going to be making a decision. So that's only kind of half true, right? So unless you're going to tell people, come into city council and you can all vote and we'll take your vote, then that's not true. It's you and me and, you know, the other council members.
Well, that is exactly the process that we're here to decide tonight then. And we have to decide whether we want to appoint the highest vote getter. We have to decide whether or not we want to open it up for an application process, an appointment, or we have to decide for a special election. It would be very heartbreaking to me personally if we had to spend that $200,000 that we could quite literally help save some of the families and businesses in our community with those funds. And I know that we're talking about this, but I have learned more about the people on this council than I ever knew, and I know because of the things that all of us are involved in that we genuinely love people and we genuinely love our community. Because long before any of us were on council, we were doing a lot of things that nobody even heard about or knew about because we love our community and we love our families. So I don't believe that this decision is going to be a political one because this is something that our community is very invested in and our families are very invested in. And I want them to be heard. But at the same time, I think there's a way to do that without having to take that $200,000 or whatever it ends up being out of the general fund that would be able to physically help them through the next year. We don't know what's coming with COVID and the shutdown. We have no idea what the financial situation is. In January, the protections that have been put in place, if they're not extended, there's going to be thousands of people that the landlords are going to have an opportunity to evict, that they're going to be perhaps losing their homes if these protections aren't moved forward. And we will have a chance locally with this same $200,000 to help our friends, our families, our neighbors, and even people we don't know. But we're all neighbors because Brentwood's not that big of a place. And so that's one of the reasons I'm so concerned about going to a special election. I believe in the right of every person's vote, but I also know how much that money could help in a very, very real way our families that are suffering right now.
So then I make a motion, we select the second highest vote getter in the mayoral at-large race, Karen Rary, to fill the vacant seat.
A second.
Okay, I have a first and a second. Margaret, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Mendoza?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Rodriguez?
No.
Mayor Bryant?
No.
Motion fails.
Well, at this point, there's a couple options. We can continue to do this process back and forth tonight, and we have come to the first 2-2 vote, which is why we desperately need to fill this seat. Or if it is the desire of the council, we can set up a special meeting for the council to have some time to consider our conversation so far and have another special meeting, or I'm open for another motion.
Although it is my last choice, I make a motion for a special election for the open seat.
I second, and I would agree it's my last choice as well. But I second because I believe that's what the people want.
Okay, there's a first and a second.
Mayor, if we could get clarification on the motion, which election, is that the all-mail ballot or the polling one, so we can dictate which election cycle that would occur on?
The mail-in ballot, the earliest mail-in ballot possible.
Thank you.
What the option was. Yeah.
And if I may ask, does the second concur with that?
Yes, it does.
Thank you.
Hey, Margaret, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Councilmember Mendoza?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Rodriguez?
I'd have to say no for now.
Mayor Bryant?
I would also say no.
Motion fails.
So what happens after this, Mayor? Because my thing is that before we jump into spending $200,000 to $280,000, I'd like to have a larger conversation about that than just jumping into something like that. Because I think you've mentioned already there's a lot of things that, you know, we can do with that, with those monies, right? Yeah, so I'm just wondering, is it another meeting we need to have? Does it need to happen tonight? Tim or Mayor, is that something from you? Because obviously I do agree with Mendoza and Myers that it's nice, it'd be nice to have the people involved and things like that. But I also know that there's a lot of money that could be used for other things for our community. So I don't know, Tim, what happens if we can't come to some agreement here?
Well, staff does need consensus from the council to have any direction about how to proceed. We could schedule another meeting. Would love some direction about what other kinds of ideas or options would help influence any change in where it appears to be stuck at this point. So if you want to do another meeting, we can certainly do that. If you want to have another agenda item that talks about developing a different application process or some kind of selection process, we could certainly entertain that as well.
So, Tim, how many times in this community have we just elected the second vote getter? Was it only 2 you had mentioned?
The minutes that the city clerk had researched only reflected 2 appointments were done by selecting the second highest vote getter.
Okay.
I wish the minutes had been more thorough. I'm certain that it wasn't always that way. We don't have record of it.
So there's only 2 that we have record of, and that's out of 16 or 18?
16 appointments from 18 vacancies, 2 appeared clearly to be based on the second highest vote getter.
And that was one of those were after the mayor, you said? I mean, that's what they're saying? After Bob Taylor? Was that the last one?
Yeah, it was 19. Let's see, where's that slide? Actually, I have the 2 special elections were 1984 and 2005, but the 2 highest vote getters was the most recent one, 2017, and I believe the earlier one was sometime 2005 or 2002, somewhere around there.
And the only one application process daily, right? What year was that?
As far as the minutes reflected, correct.
We just don't have good minutes then to really give us an idea of what the history is with Brentwood, right?
You can be sure the minutes from this process will be very articulated.
Okay, I hope so.
I have a question to Tim. I know there's the survey process that we have online that we've used in the past. Could we develop a survey and ask people what they want?
As far as what you'd like to see in an application process?
So select the second highest vote getter in an at-large race, application process, or special election.
You could, sure.
Because my concern is that I don't see us changing within 60 days. So then we're going to end up where we're not going to have anyone till November. So the sooner we can get some kind of, resident feedback that Joel and Johnny are happy with, that would be great, because then they would be hearing from the residents.
Well, Lisa, we want to make sure you're happy with it too, though.
Yeah, I talk to people all the time too. I mean, you got all their emails. When they talk to me, I say it counts when you send an email to council. So I know Johnny and Joel said you guys talk to people, so please.
Yeah, but Lisa, I want to say something on that, because everybody in this community doesn't use email, doesn't have access. I mean, not everybody's sitting around by a computer. I'm not saying that everybody is, but there's some people in this community also, especially in the older communities, that don't use computers and don't email, and it doesn't mean that they shouldn't be heard, right? So I want to make that very clear too. Just because they're not emailing or sending letters, that they don't have a voice, right? Because I'll be honest with you, I can speak for my father. He ain't going to email nobody. He ain't going to call nobody. He ain't going to do that. But if you go to his house, he'll tell you what he feels. So I just want to put that out there that it's, for some people, email and sending a letter is very easy for them, which is great. But there's other portions of this community that don't use that as communication.
I get it. Councilmember Rodriguez, I'd like to say, I'd like to address that and say that actually that's something I'd like to add to the agenda, but I'll say that later on this evening. But I want to say again that we received nearly 100 calls in tonight and emails, and I remember 97 of them specifically using Karen's name and the other 3 implying Karen's name. I might be off by 1 or 2, but that is a pretty fair representation. I'm saying again, because this is citywide, this is not just people calling from our side of town. I just really think that we need to review that, whether it's in another meeting or whether we get more input from the city. We have got 100 people nearly saying, yes, they want Karen in this specific role at this exact time, representing the entire city in an at-large council role.
Yeah, I'd like to see those numbers. I'd like to see that. That'd be good.
You have them in your email, and you heard them all tonight. That's what she's referring
Well, some people don't put their address. I mean, some do, some didn't, some just put Johnny Rodriguez or this or that. So I see everybody doesn't have an address on their emails that were sent to them.
I was Googling people to see where they live, so I was looking up people. But okay, so you said you've talked to people, and I'm a data person, and to me it's black and white. So if the two of you have talked to people, can you comprise a list of who you talked to and what their position was and share it with Susanna and I so that we can have that input as well? Because I need to see it. I mean, we had really passionate people call in and send emails, so I'd like to see the list if you have the names and what their position is and what they want.
I understand why you're asking that. At the same time, there is no doubt in my mind that if we give them an opportunity, they would do it publicly. But under no circumstances would I feel comfortable volunteering information that people talk to me about if they have come to me in confidence or nervous. And I don't believe that you would either. But if we make a way for
if it's based on a vote, and I mean, we're doing it in private, I know it's confidential, I wouldn't share it with anyone, but if you're asking me to vote on what you're saying someone said, I would like to know, Johnny's concerned about where they live, we should know who they are, where they live, and what option they want.
And I think that there's a way that we can provide that so that anybody that wants to participate can put their name. I agree. I want to know what people are wanting. That's the whole point of this process. But we need to hear everyone.
Yep. So at this point, I think we're kind of at a standstill. So I don't know if someone call to have a special meeting, or how do we go about it?
Well, either Tim or Damien, if you have some options that you would like that we could present to council, that would be helpful.
Having been in other cities where they've had similar struggles coming to consensus, it did seem like the other two experiences I had, when they started an application process, they were able to go through a dozen or more candidates and finally were able to find consensus and make an appointment. There was a huge priority, again, those other cities of not spending the money on a special election when they just had one. But again, I heard from a member of the public, they're not interested in what other cities have done. So again, it's up to Brentwood. Brentwood has historically made the appointment. That's, again, subject to change, and this current council has that prerogative. My suggestion would be initiate a list of what you'd like to see through the application process. We can completely revamp the process to your liking and make sure it's as thorough, as transparent, as community-driven, and feedback incentivized, so you have all the feedback you're itching for, and then see if you can't find consensus on a qualified candidate. And if you can't, my recommendation, again, is to do that before January 10th, so that if you need to resolve moving to a special election, it's that May 4th, 2021 election, as opposed to something later.
Okay.
Is that something that council would like to do, at least make an effort before we decide to go to a special election and spend the funds, but still have it within the time frame that if we do a special election, it can be as early as possible?
I'm comfortable with that.
If we have fair representation from residents, and we had pretty much almost the entire group of people who emailed and called in support of Karen Rary, and I didn't hear anyone specifically opposed. So if there are people that are opposed to Karen in this position, if they are opposed to the special election or to the application process, they had a chance to call in, they had a chance to email. We're giving them another chance. We really do want to hear from the residents. I would not ever just support blindly spending $200,000, especially now. What I do support is that residents' voices are heard and that we are fair in listening to what they have to say. I don't know that I think we're doing that right now, but I think we have a chance to do that.
And I do think someone made a comment about if it's someone that we have a relationship, we need to recuse ourselves. Like, you know, if it's someone that's a close friend or something like that, or a business partner, I think that needs to be part of the application process as well.
So we'll be able to work on that, right, Tim? On what's on there, I think what Jovita's saying, right? Councilmember Mendoza, see, right.
To eliminate friends, is that what I'm hearing?
I would just feel uncomfortable if, like, you know, it's someone's really close friend, or, I mean, I'm going to be honest, like if it's Sino gave to Joel's campaign, if Andrani were to apply and they both got money from Sino, I would feel uncomfortable with that.
So let's do this, because it's agendized appropriately. If I could get a list of criteria of what you'd like to see in an application process, we can get that maybe set up for a special meeting, maybe first of next week before the holidays come, and you could approve that application and be off and running with it fairly quickly.
Well, the first part of the application process is, I also think, getting feedback from the residents. What do they want to see in an application process as well? It's not, again, it's not just us. I want as much resident input as possible. So let's ask them which process they would use, and if it, you know, and if it gets to an application process, what criteria would they like to look at as well?
Yeah, and we'll invite the public to send emails to the council, to me. We'll schedule as much news media as we can, get press releases out, trying to garner some of that feedback. But we are on a tight time frame if we want to go down this route.
Well, can we use the portal? Can we get something up and running on that portal with the survey?
The portal will accommodate some of the public, as Councilmember Rodriguez pointed out. We have other venues we need to find ways to connect with the 40,000 registered voters, and we haven't even heard from less than 1/3%. Yeah. How do we get more feedback from them? And absent that, the council is going to have to step up and make the tough decisions.
Yep.
Fair enough, and I think we're going to be using our new PIO quite a bit for this.
Let's put them to work. So Mayor, if that's okay, if we could just go down through the roll call and get a list from the council members of things they'd like to hear, and we'll add that to whatever the community is willing to share through whatever means. And
can I say, I'm not voting for an application process. I am voting to explore the options for an application process, right? I am not signing up for an application process until I see what the whole process looks like, soup to nuts.
And in order to show you what that looks like, soup to nuts, I need some ideas so we can put that on a special agenda.
So, okay. So then that's a to-do for us to work on that you would need back by a certain amount of time.
Tonight,
right?
From you, and then from the community as quickly as we can garner it.
Yeah, I'm not going to have criteria tonight unless, I mean, we could start working now and we'll probably be here till 1 a.m, but we could do that tonight, or we could schedule a special meeting to sit down and talk about all of the criteria, and I can go do research on it. But I'm not going to sign up for that tonight.
Sure. And another option, and I hear your concern, is to start an application process, and when you meet, have the interviews, then ask all the questions in the world that are most concerned to you and the public, and that's another way of getting there.
No. I mean, you could put on a motion, but I'm not down with that. I feel like I'm being boxed into an application process, and that is not what I want. So you can bring it to motion, and then we can vote on it, and then we can come back to another meeting, which is an option, right? If we don't vote tonight, then we come back to another meeting. But I am not, on something this important, going to be boxed in to come up with criteria at 9:30 at night when I've done no research on any other special elections that have occurred and what kind of questions that I think are the most important for our residents. And without their input, like they should be sending in questions that they want from applicants. That would be irresponsible on my behalf.
So then should we put a date within the next few days of a special meeting for us to have and have enough opportunity to come up with some of the questions that we want to see answers for.
Yeah. So I'll be reaching out to the community tomorrow, but hopefully they can give me some feedback Thursday, Friday. So I would say the earliest would be the 21st. If you want quality questions. And that is, we can do that.
Tim, can you give us an idea of what is required to set this special meeting and what kind of attendance and what kind of announcements done ahead of time and agendized items, and how does that work?
Sure. Because it would be a special meeting, not occurring on a regularly scheduled meeting, so if we looked at the 21st, that's Monday, we have to get an agenda out by law 24 hours in advance. We would try to get an agenda out probably the Friday before, if we had enough information, and the rest could be figured out at the meeting if we don't have it in an agenda.
And then let's say we get together on the 21st and we don't come to a consensus. So then what happens then?
We would put on the agenda, again, that the opportunity you can make a motion to consider a special election or consider making an appointment that night. So we'd have all the same options again tonight, and we'll revisit as many times as you want until we either have direction or run out of time by February 6th and default to the August 31st special election.
Okay.
Unless there are other ideas for the council how to work through this.
So was that a motion for a special meeting to encompass all of the topics we just discussed?
Can I ask one more question? I'm sorry. How quickly could we get a survey up and out to the public about what they would like from us on this?
We could certainly put together a survey that would be very simple that says, what would you like to see in characteristics, in qualifications, in where they live, anything we can legally ask, and put that in a survey and have that out by Friday.
But the survey also needs to include, do you want second highest vote getter? Do you want special election? Do you want application process? If it's the application process, what criteria would you want? It's not, I'm not jumping to application. I want to know if people want Karen, want an application process, or want a special election. And I think we keep jumping over that for some reason.
Yeah, I don't have council direction to do that. So I heard application characteristics that were of most interest. So if there's different direction, I'm open to that.
Yeah, so I would like to know, okay, there's A, B, C, and if you choose C, let's call C the application process, then what would you like to see in an application process? Because if we come back, if every single person responds to these surveys and we have like a ton of more responses on the 21st and people want second highest vote getter, then, then we should make the motion for that again.
So, Councilmember Mendoza, so what if everybody doesn't?
Then I will be like, okay, people said they didn't want it. And then no one can see that. I chose something else. Because I'm telling people to speak up and send in information.
The question is, though, Councilmember Rodriguez and Mayor Bryant, would you both be satisfied if there was a city-sponsored, produced survey where the city spoke in high numbers and said that they prefer second highest vote getter? How would you respond to that? Because I would be willing to consider the application process if in the survey Councilmember Mendoza is discussing where all of the options are lined out. If people choose that as their top choice over the other options, I would consider that. So I would like if you would consider the reverse. Again, if this is a citywide survey that people in large numbers respond to.
No, I get it, Councilmember Myers, but I'll be honest with you, sometimes, I don't know, for the older portion of Brentwood, it's a little harder for them just to jump on the computer and do surveys, right? They're not, you know, there's a newer, when I was growing up here, there was 2,000 people, so there's 60-some new thousand people here that are a little bit more comfortable using technology than a lot of other people, right? So sometimes to evaluate that with a survey, which I totally respect and I love to see that, and I'm not saying that it wouldn't change my mind, I'm not saying that is, but we're putting these positions and these seats because we're also the voice of the people that have never been heard, or the voice of people that don't use technology, or the people that don't trust the system, or the people that feel they're below, so why should I even say anything, and why should I go there? They feel this way. So my thing is the surveys, I'm not saying anything's wrong with that. Okay, please don't take it that way. I'm not saying that it's not a good process. I would love to see that myself. Somebody has something on over there. But also at the same time, we got to understand is that we're looking at 40,000 registered voters, but there's 46,000 people in Brentwood, right? And on top of that, you've mentioned there's 100 people that have written or called. There's still 40-some thousand. I mean, there's 39,000. So my thing is that I have no problem doing the survey. I think it's a great idea. Let's do that. I'm not saying it will, but we also got to understand there's people in this community. I don't care how many surveys you put together at community meetings, they're not going to attend. They're one, it's scared of immigration. Number two, they don't speak English. Number three, so now is this survey going to be in Spanish and English?
Councilmember Rodriguez, I'd like to say, by the way, I absolutely 100% respect what you're saying. In fact, that's part of what I ran on. I am definitely in support of equity and inclusion, and that's really important to me. So I will not argue with anything you're saying. I will come up with alternatives to make sure that voices are represented. I'd like to suggest that the press release Tim Ogden suggested would go to the press and to East County Today, both representing the Brentwood community, and that there would be potentially in that a Spanish-speaking section and an English section with phone numbers. Is there a staff that could accept, or a voicemail that we could set up so that people who were not comfortable with technology and filling out a survey and send an email could call instead? I mean, I 100% agree with you. We need to make this a process that everyone could easily take part in and be heard. That's important to me too. It's not just important to you. So
I respect that, but my thing is I keep on hearing is there's 100 emails. I understand that, but there's 40-some thousand people in Brentwood. So my thing is I respect the 100 emails. Don't get me wrong, and phone calls. I truly do. They've taken the time. They've written out. They called. I totally respect that. So anybody that's hearing that, please understand I respect that. But there's a large portion of our community that sometimes people don't even know exists in Brentwood. Right?
That's why I think the
and those people are never heard, and there's more than 100, right? Sure. And so
I agree.
My thing is, I have no problem with the process you guys are asking, but I also know that let's be realistic. Everybody, you guys could send something to, I don't know, next door or whatever these things are, which I'm not on none of them. And yeah, all those people know each other. Of course, they're going to support that. But there ain't una puerta de la casa. There ain't a group like that out there, right? So my whole thing is, I understand it's sad that more people do surveys or more people are not engaged and involved. But honestly, there's a history of that happening in Brentwood, where a lot of these communities don't feel like my voice don't matter, so I really don't care. I'll be honest with you, and we're trying to change that. Just that alone, we're trying to change. Some people are raised to understand that their voice matters, understand they have the right, they have a voice and this and that. Some of these communities don't. So that's why I want to make sure that when we do this, I know that, and I believe me, I support the survey, let's do it, but if we can try to be as transparent as possible, that'd be great. Because I'll be honest, and no disrespect, because I nothing but Mendoza, but Mendoza can have 100 friends and she has them all call. Okay, well, those are all her friends, right? I don't know, right? Because I'll be honest with you, I know a lot of people and I know a lot of names in this community, and I probably recognize 2 or 3 at the most, and I've been here for 49 years of my life. You know what I mean?
I recognize a ton of those names. And Susanna, I didn't know any. Did you know a lot of those people, Susanna?
I knew a few, but most of them know.
These are not the usual suspects. So no, I do not know none of those people.
Okay, no, I'm just saying. Well,
I don't know what time. So I think what I know you.
What I'm saying is I support the survey. How can we get as transparent as possible? That'd be great.
Yeah, I just think that we hear you that you want people's voices to be heard, but when we're giving you options to hear people, I don't like you say that you know a lot of those people. So we want their voices to be heard. How can we get them heard? If we do a survey, how do we do it? Because we want it to happen, but I really need you to tell us how to do that if you feel like what we're doing is not valid for them.
What's hard, Councilmember Mendoza, is this. I don't want to overstep as a council member and do something that I'm not supposed to be doing. Believe me, I'm very good at community organizing. I've done that for years. But I don't want to overstep my position either and dictate a conversation or make a certain issue go in a certain direction that may be comfortable to me, right? I don't want that perception because I already know that would be the perception. So, and going back to you, Councilmember Mendoza, it's very difficult for me because if I'm going door to door, if I'm going out there in these communities, it's going to look like I'm trying to dictate the direction of this conversation. And that's not what I want to happen. I don't, because I don't want that perception. But I know how to organize, I know how to do it. And I know in those communities, they don't do emails. You got to walk through the door and you got to knock on it and you have to say good morning and you got to talk to people, right? And I can do that. But what I'm saying is, what's frustrating for me is that I can't do that to a certain extent because I don't want to cry. I'll have Damien call me on a Saturday saying, Johnny, you're crossing the line, right?
Example, like Stephanie that lives over in the Dwelly-Mori area. I don't know Stephanie. I've seen her with her truck, but I don't know Stephanie. What she did is she created a survey and emailed it out to people who have printed it out and shared it in the community. So maybe that's something you can do. Like you're just dropping it off. They can do whatever they want to do. Whatever works, we want to hear from as many people as possible. And, if we're gonna do this, I want them to be the ones telling us they want an application process. I cannot move forward with an application process if the people aren't telling us that that's what they want. And if they don't respond, I can't do anything about it. You know me. I'm out asking for people like, tell me what you want, regardless of where they live. So if I ask them for that and they're not passionate enough to respond, I can't do anything about that. I've done everything I can. Like, you can lead a horse to water kind of thing.
Well, why don't we do this? Why don't we give some direction for the question to our staff to come back to us with the options that they have very clearly heard what we want to see in the process of finding out whether or not we want the election, whether we want the appointment, or whether we want the interview appointment process. Staff, have you got clear direction as to some of the things that have been talked about we'd like to see?
Based on your summary of it, it sounds like a survey that would ask the residents who are willing to participate through the various venues that we can find and to fully engage everyone that wants to participate. Do they want to do a special election? Do they favor an application process? And if so, what are some of the criteria that they would like to see the council consider in making such an appointment? Does that cover the main tenets?
Or do they want the second highest vote getter for the mayoral race to be appointed?
Okay, probably the third, correct. So exclusively the second highest vote getter for the mayor race, then, is that right?
Yes.
Because it's an at-large position.
So I'll just need that to be in the motion if that's the case. On those three.
Say what it's going to look like again, Tim. Say what it's going to look like.
Well, it's not my motion.
Yeah, but no. What did you hear from? What did you hear?
Asking the residents if they want to have an appointment process, and if so, what criteria would they want to have considered? do they want to do a special election? Or third, do they want to have the council appoint, so again, 2 appointment processes, but appoint the second highest vote getter and that person alone is what I'm hearing.
Or the application process, right? Application interview process.
Special election, appointment process is open to everyone, or an appointment process exclusive to the second highest vote getter, former Councilmember Karen Rary.
Okay, yeah.
Did I hear it correctly?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion on that. What am I exactly supposed to say, though, Tim or Damien?
Well, I guess I actually had a question, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, regarding the timing of all this. It sounds to me that the city manager is talking about preparing a survey to determine what the residents would like to see, how they'd like to see filled. 1, a special election. 2, an appointment of either the second highest vote getter of the election or an appointment through an application process. And then if that's the case, what specific criteria they would like to see as part of that discussion. My question for the council is, what's the timing of this, and for the city manager as well? Did they want him to move forward with the survey now? Do they want to wait for a special meeting to see what the questions specifically look like? From a legal standpoint, these are all doable things that you're asking. For my purposes, the main thing you need to consider is February 6th. That's when you need to make some sort of decision on this. If not, it does go to an election. So just if you can keep that in mind as you have these discussions. We also have the holidays coming up with Christmas and New Year's, and those are 4 days that are not going to be, there won't be city employees working, and so those are some other issues to consider. But I think just to summarize from what the manager said, I think he was talking primarily about the survey, either a special election or an appointment process, which would either be the next highest vote getter or an application process, and if the application process, what the criteria would be.
I guess from an operations perspective, how long does it take to put up a survey, Tim, and send out PR releases and all of that good stuff?
If the survey is solely asking those 3 options and not detailing all of the criteria that would need your feedback at that special meeting, we can get that out tomorrow. And then you can have some initial feedback by Monday if that's when you want to hold the special meeting, to then further develop the criteria before we send out an application, which ideally would need to be the next day or 2 turnaround right before Christmas, so that you have it out at least a week or 2, so you have time for applicants to submit applications, for the city clerk to clear their names to make sure they're eligible candidates, registered voters, live in Brentwood, et cetera, and then have a special meeting, ideally that Thursday, January 7th, so you have time to either do an application process if desired, or have time to announce a special election if there's consensus for that. That way it could precede the January 10th deadline to miss the May election. If that's not of concern and you want more time, we can extend that process, and just knowing that if you don't reach consensus on an application or a candidate appointment, then you would default to the August 31st special election.
Can we, we were talking about the criteria. Can you just have a text box underneath the application process for criteria desired? And then they just type it in and we read their notes? That
will work for those who are filling out the survey electronically, yes. Those who are filling out the survey through other means, if they don't have technology access, it could work similarly. It would just be harder to collate the data, but we could work with that.
Is that something where people could leave a message on our voice recording then?
We would accommodate that as well, absolutely.
And then we can keep track
emails,
of who
phone calls, physical surveys, electronic surveys. We'd consider every option.
And at this point, is it appropriate to make a motion to do that? And if so, do we have to remember exactly what you just said?
This meeting's being recorded, but Damien?
I can repeat it one more time, and if you would like, and if you'd like, if you concur with what I've just said, then you can make that your motion if that would simplify things. But from what I understand, the council would like to direct staff to prepare and issue a survey regarding the vacant city council seats and ask the residents and voters of Brentwood whether they would like to see a special election occur or an appointment process occur. And that appointment process could either be the second highest vote getter, or it could be through an application process. And if it's through an application process, what specific criteria they might want to see either as questions or information about the candidate. Obviously, there's some things that we can't ask, race and sex, their sex, things like that, but other questions could be asked. And so we would have to review that for legal purposes.
Can we ask for their address? And that way we can determine, because I think that, to me, it's not a big deal, but, if Johnny and Joel see, that's important to them. So can we ask for their address so we can see where people are living?
I think you can ask, but I don't believe we can require it if they don't want to provide it. The public has the right to be confidential. And there are a number of people that don't want to provide their address.
Yeah, that's fine. If they want to, they can, right?
I think that'd be an optional part of the service.
Yeah, if I could just ask Margaret to weigh in, we may need the address to confirm if they're a registered voter for some purpose, but wouldn't need to disclose that publicly. We could perhaps summarize it in districts if that narrowed it down in some way based on some conversations that have been had. But Margaret, any clarity on that?
Yeah, we could narrow, if I had a list of addresses, we could narrow it down by district. And then
do you need addresses for any other purpose?
Not for any other purpose unless we were taking applications, and then I would need an address and birth date to confirm voter registration.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's not a must-have. I think it's a nice-to-have.
With this in mind, I would like to make a motion to concur with what City Attorney Brower announced. Is that enough text?
I think it is. If I can just ask one clarifying question, is there a time element for this when you wanted the survey back, or Mr. Ogden, are you satisfied with what you've heard? You can move forward and bring something back at some point in the future.
If we're shooting to have this resolved before January 10th, so you have the plan B of moving to the special election on May 4th, it's a really tight time frame, and you're going to have to trust us to just get information out and have a shorter duration for that survey, which is perhaps not ideal. But if we got some preliminary information sent out tomorrow, we could have it out through the rest of the week, and you could have it real-time Monday night at the special council meeting, and then consider if that's enough information. If you want to extend it at that point, ideally we could get some direction to then move forward either with a special election, with an appointment for a single person, or appointment process for a multitude of applicants, and we'll try to get that scheduled early January so there's enough time to hit that January 10th date. If that's not a priority, then we can spread this out a little bit more, and as long as you got it done before February 6th, you still have the plan B at that point for the August 31st special election. So it depends on how quickly the council wants to move on this and shorten that survey time frame that's out there in the public.
I would be interested in finding out if the press would be able to get the survey published. Typically Wednesdays are their deadline, so I'm not positive. It would be better if we could get it in this Friday's paper, if that's a possibility. East County Today could probably get it up pretty quickly.
Yes, Greg Robinson, I want to speak on his behalf, but they are a weekly publication, but a daily news site, right? So if they can't get it in the paper that comes out Thursday, or they have a deadline early Wednesday, I think, at the latest for breaking news, they could certainly get it out electronically to their subscribers and on their social media sites.
So how long are we going to have this survey out, Tim? What's your goal? What's the goal? Is it a week, 2 weeks, or is that up to us too? Tim? Oh.
I'm thinking.
Okay. I thought you were waiting for us.
If you want to have a time to consider it at the special meeting, some initial feedback, it's a really short survey time frame. And that's not going to provide staff a lot of opportunity to do further outreach. If you want to see the survey next Monday, we could hold off and make sure it's right, and then you could put it out for a few weeks if you want us to do them parallel, where the survey is ongoing and you're meeting Monday, seeing some real-time results, but the survey is still ongoing through January, meet again in January. But again, if you want to do an application process at some point, you need to have enough time before February 6th to then consider those applications, have sufficient time to submit the applications, be certified that they're qualified, and then make a recommendation for appointment.
So what do you recommend, Jim? What's the start and ending?
I think to try to preserve the plan B of coming to some conclusion before January 10th, I would say give staff direction to go ahead and put out press releases and a survey and a link and send it to everybody, as well as provide other venues throughout the community as far as we can reach, and have that feedback initially brought back to you next Monday real time, and then see if the decision. 21st.
Yeah.
And we're not bound to 7 o'clock if you want to start earlier, if you want to start later, but again.
No, I would like it to run all day. 7 is fine with me. That way we can have a full day Monday.
That makes sense.
Because if we get it out tomorrow, I mean, probably by midday, then we have Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, hopefully, a lot of Monday. And that gives us a good read on what people want, and, we'll see.
Yep, and we'll take survey results, we'll take emails, and maybe we'll put a centralized email account, or if it goes to the council, forward it to staff if we're not getting it otherwise. We'll put up a voicemail center so they can leave the voicemail with a short voicemail. This is my preferred option, thank you, and keep it short and sweet. No commentary. That would be very helpful. We can get it through a couple means pretty quickly.
Okay, so from what date to what date?
Hopefully I'm not over-promising, but by the end of the day tomorrow, we could have it all sent out, a survey, press releases. The press texted me, he can comply with this. We'll get it out to you kind of day and all the other publications, and then you'll have some real-time feedback Monday. So technically be on the street Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So 5 days. It's short.
For the sake of inclusion, can we have a print flyer that can be hung in the windows of storefronts in different parts of town that might not normally have the ability to respond as other parts?
With our COVID restrictions and staff working teleworking, it might be challenging to get things printed and posted, but we could certainly make an attempt at it. Another thought, too, is we have email addresses through our utility billing. We have email addresses through business license. We could try to get the word out as broadly as possible as well. I know we have competent staff who can translate into Spanish as well. That might help reach more people as well, so willing to do all of those outreaches.
So from the 16th to the 21st?
Yes, late 16.
Okay.
Okay, do we have a motion finally for this?
So I make a motion that we do a public survey that offers 3 options: special election, second highest vote getter from an at-large race, or an application process, with the application process having a text box where the survey taker can input any kind of criteria they want as part of the application process. This would run from the 16th to the 21st, with results provided to us for a special meeting on the 21st.
Yes. Yes, and if you could hold that for just 1 sec, I just thought of another idea. Greg Lawson, the Public Information Officer, is on the line. If Margaret could unmute him and Greg, see if Greg wants to share any other ideas of what he could come up with to get as broad outreach as possible.
Greg, you're unmuted. Oh, now you're unmuted. Go ahead.
I'm unmuted. Okay.
Thanks, Greg.
Good evening, everyone. No problem. Can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. One other option, it is a very quick time frame. One other option we may have is to look, and this is something we may have to talk to Greg Robinson there at the press, an option may be is to put together a small ad in both English and Spanish directing them to possibly an online survey. This is something that can be hosted on our city webpage possibly. So that's another option that may be able to get out to the masses. So that's another option I thought of.
That would be good.
And I agree. I mentioned that myself. I think that in addition, I would like to find out if it could lead to a voicemail message. Like, so if someone is not comfortable doing an online survey, Greg, that maybe they could instead call and leave a message, and that maybe the greeting, and that could be in Spanish as well.
Correct. And the ad would have the options that they could use. So it would be a telephone option, or if they prefer, they can go and do the survey, whichever way means we do the survey. So there would be two options there.
And would there be a desire to have the survey remain open through past Monday? Should, when you meet again, you've got even more feedback. If you're not ready to decide Monday, that might be wise as well.
I would say yes, because what if we continue to be deadlocked? The more information we have from residents, I think that the more undeadlocked we might become.
Love it. And
I'd like to remind staff that we also discussed East County today, so that same option of being able to call in or link to an online survey would be through them as well.
Yeah, we're not going to limit any of the media outlets, East Bay Times, Contra Costa Times, I mean, whatever all the times are for East County. We'll include everybody and anybody to help market this as broadly as possible.
So do we have to make that motion again, or is that okay as the motion was?
I think for my purposes, if the city manager concurs, I think the motion was sufficient. I think you just clarified some of the outreach efforts, not the substance of your motion. So okay. there's a motion on the floor, and there would need to be a second to proceed.
I'd like a second.
We have a first and a second. Margaret, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Mendoza?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mayor Bryant?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimous.
Thank you.
Well, then now we will move on to item D1, request for future agenda items. Is there anyone that has a future agenda item request?
Trying to be polite. Yes, I do. I would like to add two potential future agenda items, both in the interest of promoting inclusion, accessibility, and equity. For the first one, I'd like to ask that staff evaluate the live reading of submitted emails during public comment. I know it's not our current practice, but I think we should consider how this would allow for all input to have equal value in our decision-making process, especially when it is happening live. In addition, I would like our Parks and Rec Department, can I do two at once before I go on? Okay. I'd like our Parks and Rec Department to review how our programming serves adults with special needs. I want to see how we can improve our accessibility so this community feels represented and they're not seen as an afterthought or a footnote, that they're a primary category like we see our older adults and youth and teens. When we're developing recreational activities, I want to make sure they are seen as a primary category. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, go ahead.
I was just wondering, we had a caller call in about the COVID vaccine. So is there any way we can I know this is extra for staff, and I'm sorry about that, but is there any way we can have kind of some feedback back to the county about the vaccine we're getting and all of that good stuff, and what our process is going to be and what kind of input we're having with the county and the state? I just want to make sure that we don't get lost when it comes to getting the vaccine for our residents and our field workers. You know, we have a lot of field workers, as he mentioned.
Yeah, we can either have that as a future agenda item request, or as soon as I have information, because I'm in regular contact with the county health officers, we will put it on the very next soonest agenda that we have the most available information to dispense how that can all roll out.
And actually, Tim, I've been meeting with people from different groups. There's a group out there called United Latino Voices. It's been around for a long time, and it's really trying to address the issue around the vaccine, but also the COVID-19 within the farm workers. So I wrote it down here in this note, but I mean, at some point, if you want to sit down and talk about that and who the contact people of that is, and then you could, hopefully we can come back with some information and share it, because I think like Jovita, Councilmember Mendoza said, the gentleman brought up some really good concerns, and I think it's important that we at least give an update on the COVID-19, but also how are we addressing some of our farm working families. But I can get you that information. I'm done, Joel.
Okay, well, if there are no more requests for future agenda items, need a motion for adjournment.
I'm moving to adjourn. Well, I'll second that.
Okay, we have a first and second. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Mendoza?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mayor Bryant?
Yes.
Motion carries. Unanimous?
We are adjourned. Thank you all very much, and I'm looking forward
Good
to
night, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for using WebEx. Visit our website at www.webex.com.